Yes, we should be live any second. Don't know why the picture. Hey, there we are.
Hey, all right.
And we are live. Episode 3 of the Last Honest Man podcast. And if you guys would just indulge me for a second, I'll just make sure that the audio is coming through from me and coming through from you as well, Dan.
Yep, I think so.
We are excellently good to go.
All right.
So, guys, I'm here with the fabulous, always smiling, always happy, always good to be around, Mr. Danny Joe Carter. Welcome, Danny.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on here. I feel absolutely honored.
Oh, well, it's absolutely my pleasure. You know what, Danny? I can't even remember where we met or how.
I think it was actually through Michelangelo Badio.
Right. Where or where?
Well, he was actually, he was working at the Chrome showroom. He had a couple of gigs there, and it was kind of an interesting story. A friend of mine reached out to him through his website and said, because I'd heard that he was coming to Vegas, and I had heard that he didn't have a tech. There was some sort of issue with his guitar tech, and I said, hey, wait a minute, he's coming to my backyard, and the guy's a legend.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, there's no way. If he's coming to my backyard, I got to hook him up. And I think that it might have tossed that around for a little bit. Maybe if he didn't know if that was for real or not, but it was really cool. I was sitting in a McDonald's, and all of a sudden my phone rings, and it's like, hello, is this Danny Joe? This is Michelangelo Badio. I'm like, are you kidding? Really? So it was really cool. And then, so yeah. And then you two had been friends, I think, for a long time, actually. So, but that's how you and I met, was actually through Michael and during that time.
I think you're right. And just a little funny story from my end, because if you remember at that gig at the Chrome showroom, he had a ton of, I don't think he was using them all, but as a backline, he had a ton of like amps and cabinets, like tons.
Yeah.
And he actually said to me, like, hey, Stuart, can I leave those cabs and those amps at your house where we are right now for a while? And I said, yeah, I don't see why not. And when they came round, on stage, they don't look as much as in somebody's living room.
Yeah.
So they were literally in that room out there. And so, and I know he'll probably hate me for saying this. So 6 months later, they're still there. I'm like, Mike, do you think it could possibly? Anyway, he did eventually take them, and just as we've both actually teched for Michael in one way or another.
Yeah, you'd mentioned that before, so I think that's really kind of cool, actually. Because I had the pleasure of doing it, and I spent about a week with him when he was here. But when did you get to tech?
So I actually had 2 occasions that were one directly linked to Michael, another one sort of through him. But do you remember when he did the Randy Rhodes tribute thing? They were doing a movie. It was a guy in LA.
Yeah.
Right, so they were doing a movie. It didn't come out. I think somebody's wife might have stopped it.
Yeah, somebody's lawyers got involved and ruined the whole thing.
But you don't want to say anything, because I know a guy who was on one of those Pop Idol things, and people showed up at his door in Ireland, and I would have gone to the press, but that's not the way he chose to handle it. Yeah. Maybe if I'd have been there, I would have not done that either. But anyways, It never ended up coming out. But the thing was, if you remember the video where he's doing the Randy Rhodes thing with the double guitar, he's got those Marshalls behind him.
Yeah.
So I can't remember exactly why, but we had to switch between guitars or switch between amps and do some other pedal stuff. Well, I'm actually on the floor. You can't see me.
Oh, man, but you're there.
But I'm on the floor actually switching the pedals while he's... So it would have looked odd, to say the least, if I'd have been in the shot.
Yeah,
some guy at the feet.
They were able to do a close-up and then that...
Well, fortunately, they're just interested in his head and his hands, so I was very glad to not be filmed, but... I didn't ask him not to film me, but I'm thinking, this is not good for my career. Or maybe it is, I don't know. But it was a lot of fun. And the other time, which was a really, really interesting thing, I don't know if you remember a few years ago, but Michael Schenker was playing also at the Chrome showroom.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Now
I missed all that.
Yeah, now Dean from Elliot, who was alive at the time, fantastic, great guy. Oh, yeah. Elliot from Dean, what am I talking about? Elliot from Dean. I wasn't a close friend of him or anything, but every time I sort of met him, I really liked him.
Sure.
So I get a phone call Saturday night, I want to say about, 6 o'clock somewhere around there. Hey, Stuart, it's Elliot. And we haven't got that kind of relationship where he would phone me up like that.
Yeah,
I just see him at trade shows and I love the guy. It's Elliot. Oh, hey, Elliot, how you doing? Yeah, well, thing is, 'cause I'm playing bass with Michael Schenker at the Chrome showroom. He's fallen out with had an argument with the road manager and all the crew are gone.
Oh, man.
So he said, do you know anybody that can come and tech? Anyone that can help out? I said, Elliot, if you phoned me yesterday or the day before, I said, but it's like, well, what time are you on? He's like, well, we're in about an hour and a half.
Oh.
Or whatever it is. So I said, all right, look, Elliot, I can't get anybody, but I'll be there. So I put on my kind of camouflage roadie pants and my big bunch of keys, and I went down there and lugged some gear about.
Oh, how cool is that, though?
Not that cool, actually.
Oh, no.
Not for me. No, I mean, look, I'd help any of my friends out.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? But do I want to do that?
Right.
Not really. Plus, you probably know Michael Schenker's a little bit of an odd
I've heard that, and
guy.
I haven't had the opportunity to even get to meet Guy, and he's one of my all-time heroes.
Yeah.
But I've never got to meet him, but I've heard...
Well, the funny thing was, I had a bit of a pop at him, quite frankly, because I'd done the cabs and loaded out and all that sort of stuff, but nothing personal between me and him, and that was fine.
Sure.
I'm sure he can still carry a guitar, or so I thought. So Elliot goes, oh, Stuart, I sort of got a favour to ask you here, but I don't really want to, but, and I was like, Elliot, no problem. I'm thinking, how bad can it be? He goes, well, can you carry his guitars up to his room?
Oh, wow.
So I was like, yeah, okay. So I've got, I think it was like 2 guitars, 1 in each hand or whatever. And I'm walking, to he's in front of me. I feel like I'm living in fucking Saudi Arabia now. I'm his wife, basically, at this point. So, but I love Elliot. And anyway, so he's walking in front of me, and I've got the guitars, I'm walking behind him. And the guy stops him and says, hey, man, can I get an autograph? He says, can't you see I'm busy here? I said, you're fucking busy. Who do you think's carrying the guitars? Sign his fucking autograph. So he signed the thing. We went up to the room. I put the guitars down. And that was the last time I saw him.
Oh, man.
And then me and Elliot was great because he bought me dinner, and we went to the little Mexican place that's in there, and we had an absolutely brilliant time.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, anyway, Danny.
Yes, sir.
Let's get on to, give us some idea, because there's a lot of stuff about your career. How did you get going?
Oh, sure.
Everything. There's some other stuff we've got to talk about, DJC guitars. There's a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. But let's hear about Danny Joe Carter, the player.
Well, it's kind of an interesting place to start. I cut my teeth more in the 70s than anything, and I think people kind of have me mixed up. They go, well, you're a shred player, but I consider myself more of almost a southern rock. But I cut my teeth. I love listening to a lot of cats from the 70s.
Right.
Everybody from like Pat Travers, Frank Marino, that kind of player. That kind of thing where I'm not schooled at all.
Right.
The first thing about it, and that's something I admire. I mean, I'm in the presence of greatness with you. You're an accomplished, amazing guitar player.
Well, thank you, sir.
I'm serious. You're a musician's musician. I'm a guitar player. That's pretty much what I do. I pick it up, and no formal training, but I always heard something in my head.
Yeah.
And it was, and this is the crazy thing is, too, I had a conversation with a guy just last night. He was asking me, he goes, hey, I'd love to do a cover thing. I get that all the time. I get guys that are saying, Danny Joe, this would be awesome. Let's do a Van Halen. Let's do this. I've played 45 years. I'm 57 years old. I don't know any covers.
Right.
I've always had music in my head.
Yeah.
And from the time I was really young, it was like a sound. I wanted a guitar player. I wanted to find a guitar player that sounded like what I was hearing in my head. Everything from the picking to this that would touch on Southern but then go almost semi-classical. And I never found that guy, but I always had this sound in my head as a guitar player, and I had to find that. And it took many years. So what I do right now is kind of the sum of all that, of many years, decades worth of chasing this sound that I have in my head, and I finally have it. Yeah,
because you do a kind of like a Delta Blues thing as well, but like an electric version of it, and you do some slide with the tremolo.
Yeah, and I got that from, I was really inspired by Jeff Beck, watching guys like that. So, and I remember for years, it was people going, Danny Joe, you know what? You really can't serve two masters. You're doing this, you're going kind of the blues, but you're kind of doing almost like a shred, kind of a classical type of thing. And I was always like, when I was younger, when I first picked up the guitar, I was in mid-70s. And guys would, it was so cool because at that time, guys would say, hey, you know what? We're guitar players. At the end of the day, that's what we do. And I remember when I was very, very young, it was very impressionable on me. I was about 13 years old, and I got invited to this little music store back in Virginia. It was actually on a Saturday.
Right.
And it was a guitar player's picnic. And I remember specifically seeing guys up on stage, and at that point I wasn't good enough to get up and perform, but saw a guy grab his acoustic. He did Dust in the Wind. The guy after him did Ted Nugent, Cat Scratch Fever. Another guy after him. You know, it was just on and on and on. And we were all guitar players, and that's all that mattered.
Right.
And it seemed like, I think it was more during the 80s that somehow it became compartmentalized. It became, well, no, what kind of guitar player are you? No, are you a shred player? Or are you a blues player? Or like they say, well, he's not real metal because we're death metal, and he's, you know, and it got so compartmentalized. And I think with a lot of players, I have a lot of young players that are asking me, what do you call your style? I'm like, I'm just playing. Yeah. I just play.
I mean, it's funny to me because I mentioned, like, you saying that reminded me of this girlfriend of mine. There's just a friend of mine, there's a girl called Karen Carpenter. So not.
Oh, okay.
That one. Spelled different. But she told me that she had this boyfriend years ago, and unless she listened to like a certain subgenre of metal, I think it was like Brazilian, or maybe she had a Brazilian, I don't remember. But anyway, I think it was like Brazilian or South American or something. And if she didn't listen to like a certain subgenre of metal, he'd get upset.
Yeah.
Now, when I was a kid and you went to a disco, they played Status Quo, then they play Tavares, then they play that funky music, White Boy, then they play Black Sabbath, Paranoid, and it never seemed like a big deal. But you're right. But what's really interesting to me is, like, I remember when one of the first times I saw Stevie Ray Vaughan, and he was doing a TV thing with, it could have been Albert Collins or anyway, some of those more old school black guys. And you got this feeling that he was a shredding. Now, no one, you just think of him as a great player.
Yeah.
But back then, you kind of like, you was almost getting this feeling like, who's this shredding, even though that wasn't a word then.
Of course, yeah.
To the Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't even know how that came about, but it was like, who's this guy flying about on an electric guitar? Now, you don't think anything of it. But do you find that you get any kind of hate mail when you play faster in the context of the blues?
Man, I hate it because what happens is I tell everybody, guys, I'm just playing. And then when I break it down, and they go, you know, and a lot of people don't realize I'm friends with Michelangelo Badio, and I follow guys like Chris and Pelletieri. I love all that.
Yeah,
and, there's guys that I don't even know if they know I play. There's great players I admire. Guthrie, you know Guthrie Govan. I don't even think he knows I exist, but I love what he does. And there's so many great players, but I'm a guy that's literally fallen through the cracks, literally, because I think there might be a handful of people that know what I like to do. Yeah, and that's it. And it's I find that when people discover, wow, I didn't know you played. You don't even look like a lot of people. You don't even look like somebody that plays. You look like a cop or ex-military. So
I get plumber.
Yeah, yeah. So we don't look like, you know, I guess musicians have to carry themselves a certain way. And that's another thing I get too. I get a lot of people say, you know, you don't act like a guitar player or musician. And I'm like,
thank God.
Picked up,
that's what I say.
I have to pick up the book or learn online how to do that. But a lot of times guys will just have their heads scratched going, well, how do you describe what you do? You know, are you metal? I'm like, no, I think it'd be unfair to call me a metal player. But I just play. But I love, like I said, that Delta blues thing. And I think something that was monumental for me back in '86 was when I went and saw that movie Crossroads.
Oh, yeah.
Because in what it was, and Steve Vai's an amazing player, but a lot of guys I knew were losing their mind over what Steve did. Great. But what literally haunted me was what Ry Cooder was doing. Oh. And we didn't have the internet back then. So I literally went 10 years trying to figure out, because I knew it wasn't Ralph Macchio playing that. Yeah. But with me, I was born in Fort Worth, Texas, first generation from Liverpool, England. Oh. There you go. There we go. So I got the English roots there. But shortly after that, we moved to Natchez, Mississippi. So when people say, Danny Joe, you live in Las Vegas. What do you know about the Delta? I'm like, hey, man, that's in my soul. in Natchez, Mississippi. That is the real home. Of the
And you know
Delta.
how I know you're definitely not a vegan, as I call people from Las Vegas? You've got that southern thing in your voice.
That's
you
a weird
speak.
thing too. I know it's kind of a funny thing.
Do you
yet
think that?
it's kind of weird because of the fact I was only there about 4 months.
Oh.
And I was there long enough to just get the 2 first names, Danny Joe, and then after that we moved along. But that southern thing, it was there all along. And then when '86 came about and I got to go see Crossroads, I was trying to come up with something that I would incorporate both of those styles.
Yeah.
Because I loved it. And it was later that summer, I went and bought myself an Ernie Ball slide. I tried glass, brass, and finally figured out it was stainless steel. And I would put it on my fingers, but there was things that I wanted to do. I'm like, well, I can't put it on the pinky because that's my stretch. Had I had proper lessons, I think this is the correct thing. Well, I never had lessons. I watched violin players, so I've got this really wide.
Yeah, if you listen to, I don't know if you know Alex Makachek.
I don't think I do.
So Alex Makachek he did a DVD for Lick Library.
Oh, nice.
Years ago. And one of the things he says is exactly what you say. If you want to get a bit more of a stretch, tuck that left elbow in like a violin player, and you'll get more. But funny enough, you taught me something about it years ago. You probably don't remember, where you said, if you put your hand on the guitar in a certain stretch without necessarily playing anything, and just leave it there, as if you were someone
lock
stretching.
It on and lock it on. And it was all things because I never had lessons.
Yeah,
I didn't, and I did. I think of everything from the way that the way that I pick. I call it my hummingbird technique. I suppose that's all wrong. Everybody that's ever look at what I do. Well, your left hand's wrong, your right hand's wrong. Everything. My whole approach, I guess, is technically
no. But
incorrect.
I'd say it was technically right, and I'll tell you why. Interesting story. Again, Michael, don't hate me. But on his very first video, he said, "Don't flick your thumb," and I did a clinic tour with him. And I was watching him, and I said, "You do realise you're flicking your thumb, right?"
Oh, is that right?
And I said, you can see it when he slows down. But the problem is, I'm a big tennis fan, and I play tennis. Oh, sure. As you get faster at anything, you can't really see what you're doing. Like when you're picking as fast as you do, even you down to the root. I mean, there's no way your human brain or human eye. You've just trained yourself, and at some point, your brain says, "Oh, okay, I get it. You want to go fast," and you go. You see what I'm saying? It's like you try and break it down. You think you know what's going on.
Right.
It's like when you hit a tennis ball.
Right.
When you really hit it that fast, you can't really see. I mean, you can break it down on the camera and this, that, and the other, but you don't really know what's going on.
No, and I've had several close friends of mine. They always say, "What am I thinking about when with the timing and everything when I'm getting ready to play something really fast?" And I tell them, I'm like, it's more of when you're getting on the freeway, you're driving. You're not looking at the speed.
Yeah.
Okay, you're driving like this. You're looking to merge. You're just driving. You're going with it. There's a flow. And what a lot of times I'm tapping my foot, and here it comes, bang. I go off with it. So it's something. It's after so many years. It's kind of a trained. I'm not thinking about it. It's just something that happens.
I mean, if you're a race car driver and you're going at 200 miles an hour, you're not going, well, I think I'll just do like a little bit here and I'll do that. But there's no way you can do it. You just, you know what I'm saying? But what does really interest me, how did you, was that a technique that you just kind of had? Was it just something you could always do? Or was it something that you consciously said, I want to play really fast and I'm going to,
that all came from the early 70s. Cats like one of my biggest influences was guys like Ted Nugent.
But they are not playing anywhere near as fast as you are.
Well,
so you kind of got it from them because they're nowhere near what you can do.
But what it did was it spawned, it planted a seed. And with me it was something where I decided that I'm going to keep working this. And I've always got friends going, what were you thinking about with your right hand? I wasn't thinking anything because I'll be honest with you, Stuart. When I was sitting and playing, I was always watching the right or the left hand. I never watched what the right hand is doing, and I swear to you, it wasn't until I'd been playing over 20 years. I think it might have been around 97, 98. A friend of mine, I was selling some gear, and I sold him. I think. I was selling. Yeah, selling.
That's what we call it in Tenerife in England, by the way.
Oh, very good then.
Where we're talking about cocaine, we call it gear.
Oh, is that right? I learned something else. Okay, musical equipment. There you go.
We call gear, funny enough, we call musical equipment gear as well. So
Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, this buddy of mine sold him this guitar. I set it up for him, and it was just beautiful, and he loved it. I didn't have a need for it anymore. And I had a full-length mirror in the little studio where I was at, and I played something. He goes, well, give me a little demo on it. And then I did my thing, and he said something really interesting. And I had been playing exactly 20 years. So it would have been 98. So
Right.
I started in 78. He goes, Danny Joe, I've never seen that before. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, your picking technique. And he had cut his teeth on the Paul Gilbert, the
Yeah.
original, the original stuff. And there was a lot of wrist movement and things like that. I said, well, I'm doing what everybody else is. He goes, no, let me show you something. And he picked up the guitar, and he was in this full-length mirror. He goes, watch what I'm doing. And he was doing, I said, yeah, that's cool. He goes, now you do it. And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
yeah,
I mean, and he's like, I've never seen, he goes, from 3 feet away and the lights were somewhat dimmed, he goes, it doesn't look like you're playing at all. It doesn't look like
no,
anything's
it's economy of motion.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I was actually talking to Martin Hales, who does all the Lick Library audio and does all my stuff, and he was saying about the podcast. Oh yeah, because a friend of mine, Danny Joe Carter's coming on, and I was trying to explain to him about the picking technique, and the only thing I could put it down to was like a hummingbird.
Sickly, yeah.
I just said, when you see those hummingbirds and their wings are just like, and you really cannot. I said, that's what it's like. But when you think about it, how quickly can you move this compared to this? I mean,
Right, and it was a thing. It was something that when I was younger, and I would say it was getting in the later 80s at that point. I had a friend of mine named Jai. He was, I don't even think he's alive anymore, but he was very much into martial arts, and he'd come from the Orient, and he was always talking about how a lot of the techniques that he did, they talked about the crane style and this, and mixing different styles. And I thought, wow, it'd be really kind of interesting if I, relating it to my guitar playing,
Right.
the centipede and the hummingbird. Because when him being a non-musician, he'd say, wow, when you're playing, he goes, your left hand, he goes, it's really, the way it moves, it spiders around, he goes, reminds me of a centipede. And I went, that's kind of cool. And with the right hand, so even though I wasn't watching really what I was doing, but I made a very conscious effort to pursuing this sound that I always heard in my head.
Right.
I wanted it to sound a certain way, and I'd never heard anybody have that sound. Now, please understand, I'm not saying, I created this thing, but I pursued a sound that I heard in my head that I don't hear other players do. A lot of guys play fast.
Yeah.
But there was a sound. And
you wanted. I've never seen. Now, I've heard people talk about, Rick Graham.
Oh, great player.
Exactly. So I've heard
Amazing
Rick
player.
talk about incorporating some of this, but I've never seen anybody do it like you do. Never.
And to be honest,
Not even close to that. No, seriously, I'm not trying to blow
Right.
smoke up your butt. I've never seen anybody comes even close to what you're doing.
Oh man, and I appreciate
So-
it. And it's
When did you realise that you were that fast?
It actually wasn't until that Guitar World magazine came out, and
Right.
it was actually I'm trying to think of the young man that actually put that Willie,
Right.
guy by the name of I think it was Willie Jordan.
Right.
He did a sidebar in Guitar World magazine. However they approached him, however it came about, but it had a list of all these fast guitar players and all these guys, and had Sean Lane and had all these amazing Michelangelo, Beatty, all these
Yeah.
guys were on there. I was stymied. How the hell did my name get on there? These
Right.
well-known. I'm just a dude, just a guy that
Yeah.
I as I said, kind of fallen through the cracks. It wasn't until then. I've always played, but I remember having a very conscious effort to, since Shred was supposedly dead during that period, that I thought would be a really good idea to keep somewhat of a presence on MySpace, because I've always written and recorded stuff and put it out. And I thought, if there's a handful of people, even a handful that might think this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I figured even if it's like the old monk sitting out in the middle of nowhere, nobody knows who he is, but I was more of a pursuit of achieving what I heard in my head.
Yeah.
Regardless whether it was
Cool
in vogue,
or, yeah.
but it was something I started on many years ago, and I was determined that I'm going to continue on that. If I'm playing for my cats, which oddly enough, when I'm practicing the staccato, to them, I think it's purring, and they get around the cabinets and they rub up against it,
Right.
which is odd, but so I'm playing for my cats.
So what was so tell us about the Guitar World thing. Was it like, because for me, before I met you, I heard, I don't know if it was from Mike or who it was from, but they said, oh, this guy's like the fastest guitar player in the world. Which is, and I was like, wow. And so for me, was that the Guitar World thing? Was there a competition, or was it just something that people started saying about you and then other people started repeating it?
Well, Willie actually came up with a program, and I to this day, because I haven't got to meet him, but one day I will, because he's just a charming guy. We've emailed back and forth,
right.
And just a sweetheart of a guy. He did something on the computer, actually, and somehow he's able to break down a particular lick or whatever it is and break it down, and he was able to count the notes.
Right.
And they clocked me at, I don't even remember. I honestly don't. Yeah, it was something like that. It was something that I just did. Another one of my, well, here's something else. I'd get home from work, hard day of work, doing whatever, it's time to play. And at that point, I had a friend that was really encouraging me. He says, consider this like a log, like a journal. He goes, if something that can happen to you or whatever that you could pass on to your kids or for whoever.
Or
start recording this stuff.
Pass on to people for money. Now, this is my next question.
Sure.
I think I could call myself somewhat of an authority on this because of Lick Library and Total Accuracy.
Oh, man.
I know what people like to buy. You've never done how to play fast tuitional video /download / anything like that, which I think, I've got to be honest with you right now, that's money all day long, brother.
It would be great. And seeing my thing is it's kind of interesting where I say I fall through the cracks. I think a lot of times it would be nice to know if there was an interest, Stuart, to be honest.
Well, you might jump through the cracks. You've always got to remember that because, the thing is, it's like when I very first started, I mean, the only reason I started the Total Accuracy and the Lick Library thing was to learn. A guy that I went to some jazz theory lessons with, called Amit Sen, he said the best way to learn is to teach. And I thought, right. And me always being a practical guy, I started teaching. And then as a result of that teaching, I started doing the Total Accuracy thing, which eventually led to starting Lick Library. So I happen to know that people want to, I mean, just ask Mike. I think his speed kills things. I don't know what that's sold, but I bet it's a lot.
Oh, yeah, it'd be an inspiration. And I appreciate the encouragement because I think, it seems like, oddly enough, something that I did, I think it was about a week and a half ago, that seems to have gotten the most attention, I think, of anything I ever did. I did a, kind of for fun, I did a version of Pachelbel Canon. It's kind of the only cover. It's not really a traditional version of it, but I did a thing called Pachelbel Canon, and I put that up on my YouTube. Literally, came home from work, thought, I haven't played in about 3 or 4 days. I thought, I put on the camera, popped it on, and I was kind of horsing around, because a lot of times that's how a lot of my songwriting ideas come about. I'll come up with something, and if I can capture it, I'll develop that. And I ran that for about 6 minutes. Just turned it on, and at the end I thought, whatever. Yeah. But I discovered something, and I stumbled onto it. And when I went into that, and I'm going a real low gain Marshall. There's almost no drive. It's just no effects. It's just me playing. And all of a sudden, that's really taken off. Crazy enough that of all the things I've done, that was the one. And people have contacted me from different continents and things, going, "What the hell was that?" And I'm like, well, it's cool. So people were actually interested in it, and I thought that was kind of cool. So
and I know the guys from Hal Leonard, so whichever way you decided to do it, if you decided to go with a company in the States like True Fire, or there's a bunch of them now, I'll help you with the contracts.
Oh, of course. Well, I'll follow your lead on it.
I would, yes.
Of course.
God, that was like Joe Biden. Don't cancel that. This is live. I can't edit it. But anyway, or if you decided to do it as your own download thing, which I would also recommend. There's loads of ways you can do it now. Back when I started, there was you couldn't really do that.
Sure.
But now you can. So we absolutely, definitely, we talk about that and get you. I don't want to make any money out of you. I like you too much. But if I could get you on a pathway, that would be I would imagine that would be a serious seller.
Oh man, well I appreciate it. I appreciate the encouragement.
Yes, and I don't mean to sort of diminish your musicality, but unfortunately, I'm a very, very practical guy.
Sure.
The world is what it is, right? And unfortunately, one of the things in the world, if you say to a guitar player, I can teach you how to be a really good musician, this, that, and the other, or I can teach you to play really, really fast. They go, really, really fast one. And that's just the way it is. It's not I didn't invent that. That's not my thing. So I sort of think, well, if they're going to clap, they might as well throw money.
Oh, hey, I like it. Oh, that's
I think I got that from Martin Hales, actually. years ago. Anyway, so let's move on a little bit from that. There's lots and lots to talk about. So you got your own guitar company, and you've had it for some time. DJC.
Yeah.
Hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah, you're right. DJC. That's exactly
DJC Guitar. So tell us about how that started, where you are with it now, because you're a qualified luthier or whatever that means.
Yeah, sure.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that was kind of interesting because right after it coincided with that Guitar World magazine fastest guitar player thing, and I got approached by a few companies. Hey, let's build a Danny Joe Carter signature guitar, and I thought, that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So I gave a few guys a spin at it, and the thing is, a lot of people don't realize we live in Dante's Inferno here in Las Vegas. Okay, we have zero humidity.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's incredibly hot. So you have wood that's coming from areas that are incredibly moisture friendly, wherever it is. But wood has
or
to
it
come
wouldn't
here.
grow, right?
What's that?
Or it wouldn't grow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So things dry out here tremendously, and the biggest problem I had was I was getting a lot of things and necks were backbowing, warping, everything like this. And I just wanted a guitar that I could play.
Right.
And I got into it with a particular company, and I wasn't getting the quality near I needed. And it's got my name on the headstock. And I thought, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. Because unfortunately, the way that I learned to play, had I had lessons, it would be this. A lot of things are traditional. The biggest issues I had with most guitars, like a traditional Strat, when I'm playing like this, what would happen is my wrist would always hit the lower horn on there. And then from the first day I ever picked up the guitar, Stuart, I remember I'm 13 years old, I'm in a music store, I get to pick up a Fender Stratocaster. And the first thing I'm like, oh my gosh, my eyes are like this. I put my hand down on there and the volume knob's right there. And I remember looking at the two salesmen going, is this in the wrong spot? And they looked at me like I was from another planet. They said, kid, yeah, right. So Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, and what's your name?
Well, Jimi Hendrix had it the other way, so that's not fair.
But that was what they were saying.
Yeah.
Though. So from the first time I picked up the instrument, I had problems with it. It wasn't right. And that was something that that's what led me down the path to eventually wanting to learn to build my own. And then so it's something that I always did. And then when I had companies approach me, so it was never right. It wasn't. Right. And I wasn't getting anywhere, but it was a very long pursuit. People were saying, the only way to get this guitar you want, you're going to have to build it yourself.
Right.
And I was actually working in a music store, and that's when I first discovered CNC, things that were computer numerically cut.
Right.
And I had heard this video and watched this thing with Paul Reed Smith, one of the finest builders in the world.
Yeah.
And that stuff was cut to 1/10,000th of an inch accuracy. And I used to play the Ibanez Rgs. It was a love-hate relationship. There were a lot of things about them that I thought were perfect, and other things for me just didn't work. But I knew I wanted something that was CNC'd. So it was mainly the pursuit of, if I've got to get something, I'm going to have to just do this thing myself.
Right.
And that was the thing I was the most frustrated with.
So when it came to the CNC thing, did you invest in a machine yourself, which I would imagine probably doesn't make much sense, or did you, or depending on the output of guitars, or did you use a third party?
Right.
Talk us through the sort of the parts, because you're not going to be sitting there, carving out a body. Nobody's doing that.
No, that's the biggest thing is, and then at being a player, it absolutely trashes my hands. And this hummingbird thing that I do, it doesn't take much to. If somebody comes up and gives me the bare handshake and really wants to show me the kung fu grip, that can throw off my picking for a day or two, so let alone gripping the sanding block. So when you're a single guy with...
Because it's just you, right?
It's me. I don't have any employees. I don't want any of that. But what ended up happening was, unless they wanted to do minimum quantities, a lot of companies wanted to do a minimum of 100 units. Companies that were ghost building.
Are we talking about bodies now, or
bodies and necks and this sort of thing? So I had a very specific idea that I wanted. That I worked on the computer and drawing for 10 years to come up with what became what I call the DJC workhorse.
Right.
And in that process, but I had companies going, you're going to have to send me a CAD drawing. I'm like, well, what the hell's a CAD drawing? He goes, well, it comes from vector files. I'm like,
what's a vector file?
Yeah,
well, that's something from space.
Yeah, so there you go. I'm like, so I need a NASA engineer. So I had these drawings that were of the perfect guitar, and so I had to learn SolidWorks. I had to do quite a bit of education myself to ultimately present what they call DXF files, drawing transfer files. So this took me 10, 15 years in the process to be able to to find this. And then I was very, very fortunate because the other thing is people wanting minimum quantities. So I was fortunate enough to find some guys after I learned all this.
Right.
And that I could send my files to, and they would provide me exactly
And
what
they
I
got
wanted.
it. Yeah.
They got it right. And
Yeah.
they provided a neck and a body. And this was all about me. I tell everybody, DJC Guitars was the most selfish thing I ever did. Because I can't just walk into a guitar store, hey, I'm going to have that Strat, and then I'm going to have me a really cool Jackson, because knobs are in the wrong spot, everything about it,
Yeah.
I don't mean to be eccentric, but to do what I need to do. I don't want to be thinking about the guitar like, this feels weird. I have to let it all go and just play and let the creativity,
Yeah.
because I'll fixate on little things. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, I was just going to bring up a point you said about being selfish, but I think it's one of those weird things in business that if you're not selfish, you're not really doing it right. Because otherwise, if you said, well, I've got like 50 guys and I'll do the body like he wants and I'll do the neck like he wants and I'll do the frets like he wants, all of a sudden you've got a guitar nobody wants.
Right. And the cool thing with this, in talking about purity,
Yeah.
I had built finally for myself the most perfect instrument ever. And I didn't care if anybody else liked
Right.
it.
Which is the best way, in my opinion.
I didn't care. The problem is, people started coming up, friends of mine, Danny Joe, this is the coolest guitar I've ever had. This is everything I ever wanted. Would you sell one? No. Go run off now. On your way. Guitar Center, whatever your fan, you don't need one of these. Look at all these great guitars. You don't need one of my guitars. But it kept coming and kept coming
Right.
and kept
So,
coming.
so were you sort of like at that point where you were thinking, oh my God, I don't want to upset another guy. I don't want to upset a friend. Maybe they won't like it. Was that where you were coming from?
No, it was more coming from the fact, maybe a business point of view. I thought, oh, I could be onto something here.
You didn't want the stress.
And I thought, well, people are wanting this, so maybe guys really are. They're like, I've always wanted this. I mean, 20-inch radius, and then I do a flat center fret dressing. So I've got literally, all my guitars have a 1 millimeter action.
Right.
And not many companies can boast of that. And there's just enough things, and you'd be surprised how many people, Stuart, that came to me and said, Danny Joe, you know how many guitars that I've picked up and the volume knob is always in the way? I hate it. Right where that knob is.
I agree.
And you put it down out of the way, and then there was a lot of things. And I stepped away from the multiple pickups because
Right.
I did that because tonally there's a lot of things. When the neck connects into the body, there's an explosion of tone that happens.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing you do, boop, you're cutting out the neck pickup. Well, you're breaking that transference. But it also made me refine myself as a player, real pure, real raw. Because I thought, I don't have all these extra pickups and things to switch to. This is what I'm going to play. One pickup, one knob, and I've got my tremolo.
Yeah.
And then at that point, if it doesn't sound right, well, guess what? I'm not playing right that day. I'm
Yeah.
having an off
And
day.
I think for me, the two guitar players, I love the one pickup thing, personally, for me. Sometimes it's nice to have a single coil in the neck, but I don't exactly understand this, but I do know that by having extra magnets in there, even though the pickup's not activated, that makes a difference, right? It changes.
I think it does.
The sound.
It does.
But also, I would say that even if Eddie Van Halen is not proof enough for you,
Right. Yeah.
right? Even if Eddie Van Halen is not proof enough for you, Alan Holdsworth has got one of the best clean sounds ever. And for the most part, I mean, in the studio, I don't know what he's doing, but for the most part, when you see him live, he's got just one humbucker. Yeah. And I think he backs his tone off for the clean sound, or maybe he uses EQ or whatever. But his overdrive sound is fabulous.
Oh,
I mean,
great.
obviously he's an amazing player, so I'm not trying to say that
Kings.
some pedal or amp has made him, what he is. But, he's an amazing player, but he gets a fantastic clean sound. And I've always been fascinated with that. I'm saying, right, okay, maybe if you're trying to make the argument that the overdrive sound is great with the humbucker, but his clean sound is fabulous as well.
Oh, he had a great sound. And kind of a real quick little story, what really solidified me on the one pickup.
The one pickup thing. So
on the one pickup thing,
yes.
This is a huge thing. So it was a nightmare gig. Okay, I've got this band. This is back in about, I think it was, must have been around 2002. So we were playing in this dumpy little club. And I'm having a great playing night. Everything is coming out just the way that I want. Now, at that time, I was doing the Ibanez Rg 550s. I made all my own pick guards for those, humbucker.
Right.
And like you said, single coil on the neck.
Yeah.
It was actually one of the stacked Seymour Duncan mini pickups.
Oh, right,
Mini
like
humbuckers, a little 59 in
Yeah, they're actually really good, those.
Oh, they're incredible.
Yeah.
And I had a push-push. I wired it with a push-push switch. So you hit it once, you're in the bridge. Hit it second time, you're in the neck. And I would do all my really fast picking and all my sweeps. It's the way it was. It was always in the neck, and then the legato stuff and the tremolo was always in the bridge. It's just the way I broke things up at that particular time. And I'm playing third song in, everything is going perfect. The fourth song, for whatever reason, I get ready to do my solo. I go to slap that knob. Damn thing gets stuck. It's stuck in the bridge position now.
Oh, my God.
And I was miserable. I was like, this is terrible. So all my really fast stuff, all this stuff, I'm playing everything, and I'm so self-conscious. I'm like, I'm hating it. I'm just hating it. So I don't have the neck pickup for my warm, bubbly. We all love that warm, bubbly sound that you get in the neck. And I thought, this is great. And I was very disappointed. I was really unconscious, I really self-conscious about what was happening. And I thought it was a terrible thing. But people were coming up, man, wow, you're really on fire tonight. And I'm like, gee, thanks. Well, a buddy of mine was actually filming that. He had an old VHS tape. And for about 3 or 4 days, he goes, I've got to come and show you that. I said, I don't want to see it. It was terrible. Finally bugs me. He says, I'm going to come over. I'm like, great, fine. I put it in, and what was happening was I didn't realize what the audience was hearing. So all that really cool, warm, bubbly stuff, it was going.
I'm not a front pickup guy.
Humming because we're playing loud, and it was this. When I come to the fourth song where the switch collapses and stays stuck in the bridge, everything was crystal clear.
Yes.
Every single note, all my sweeps, everything was like, I'm like, are you kidding me? So that was my epiphany moment where I'm like, the bridge or the neck pickup is going to go, and I'm going to start really concentrating on the bridge.
Yeah.
And what I found, that was kind of almost more the introduction to the hummingbird thing, because I found if I added more mute and picked really light, I could get a very good, very articulated sound. Or if I dug in a little bit more, so I was able to literally do everything.
Back the tone off a little bit if you cared.
And I don't even have tone control.
Oh, right, okay.
So what I found out with myself was simply by rocking my hand from the fleshy part, adding more or less palm mute, or physically pulling the pick slightly away, and then the more minute, so I could play a passage.
Yeah.
And it sounded really, really staccato, but very, very light, what I'll call placcato. It's just kind of one of my things. I'll call it, where it's really, really light. And that's what I did on my Pachelbel Canon thing. I'm picking so light.
Right.
It's just barely touching the strings, but it's there because the upstrokes.
Yeah.
Everything's really, really solid. But I discovered all that, like I said, truly by accident.
By that
and that's
thing,
what ultimately became my DJZ workhorse.
I mean, I'm not a front pickup guy, got to be honest. Now, we all know Sweet Child of Mine, Still Got the Blues. There's certain occasions where it works, but where it really doesn't work is if when you get these people that are using sort of quite a lot of overdrive, which I've got no problem with that. But let's say they're using some extra overdrive, maybe because of legato or whatever, and then they switch to that front pickup, and it's just like. But it's also a funny thing for me. I look at I don't do so much teaching anymore, but when I do, what I do, I don't know if you notice the same thing, but you'll see people like bending strings. People don't really think about it. They go, I've got to bend a string now and again. That's just what you do. So what they do is they're like going, they're not thinking about the bend or this, that, and the other.
Man.
And I kind of think about the front pickup, the same thing. You're like, why are you switching to the front pickup?
Yeah.
Well, because I've been on this one for a while. That's not really a valid reason,
You've got to give it a rest.
You know what I mean? It can't be on there.
Tired,
It can't be because it might wear out.
Right.
So why are you no disrespect, but you're playing exactly the same stuff on the back one as you were playing on the front one. So why are you on the front one? And I guarantee you most people wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm not a big front pickup guy. The only thing I do is single coil in the front one if you're doing some Hendrixy kind of clean, funky kind of stuff. But also, it's trying to get a balance between the pickups as well. It's like, I don't know if you're the same as me, but I am not a big fan of multi-channel amps.
Oh, no.
And the only reason I got them was because I thought I was supposed to.
Yeah.
Honestly.
That's the thing is because I would always get lost, and that's kind of like what I've got going right now. My setup is I have one sound, I always say Angus and Malcolm were very much an inspiration to me in the fact that
They sound amazing.
They are, and there's one sound. Like with my rig, there's one sound, and it's kind of like the old Eddie Van Halen sound with a little bit of delay. But I never change it. I have one sound. I'll roll the volume down if I need it to go somewhat clean.
Yeah.
But I don't get into the multi because I'm trying to think more about what I'm playing, and somehow that serves as a distraction. And then I'll be like, well, that tone isn't quite what I want. I just want to strip it down and make it as refined as I can.
And, you know, the funny thing for me is now, and I'm not knocking any companies or anything like that, but nowadays this guy goes, yeah, man, I just bought this unit. I've got 500 amplifiers.
Man,
right.
That's hard.
And I just bought this other thing. I've got 600 cabinets. And I've got like 85 tube screamers, just tube screamers. And you think to yourself, you know, Eddie Van Halen, I remember with the thing with Steve Vai, and he was saying he did 7 albums with the same gear.
Yeah.
All of which were multi-platinum.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody loved them.
Yeah.
And they were all, and my other great example is Prince. Apparently a lot of the stuff Prince did, especially vocally, was an SM58. Now, apparently it wasn't because he necessarily thought that was the best microphone in the world, although it is for some things, you know, live, whatever.
Oh,
it was just like, right, I got an idea, boom.
Right.
Now, imagine if you said, right, I've got this idea for a riff, Danny. Can you come next Wednesday? I should have the cabinet sorted out by then.
Ah, jeez.
You just think, oh my God, like if you can just get one good sound, that'll be good. Yeah. And the stupid thing is all of these modelings are trying to model things from the 70s anyway.
Yeah, and that's the thing I've noticed too. And I have so many friends that are in the recording thing, and they're like, well, I'm in the reamping thing. And I hated it. I didn't like it. I got into it, and it felt very synthetic, and I couldn't get... I had a Kemper for a short time. I had the Fractal. And to me, I have to say I'm kind of a slave to what I do. The guitar, the sound, everything has to be right. Otherwise, if I'm thinking about it, my playing goes to hell. Yeah. I can't have distractions like that. And I noticed with all those, there is this compression when I'm wanting to pick really fast or I do certain things. There is this natural compression that I absolutely cannot get away from. And some guys don't notice it, but I do because I've got 2 different ways that I pick. I'll either pick very aggressive sounding, or when I'm doing my hummingbird, like on this Pachelbel Canon piece, I'm picking so very, very, very light. Well, these amplifiers, these modelers, they do not allow that. It comes across as pretty linear, and I found that if I pick something really, really hard, or I pick it incredibly soft, you know what? It all comes out the same. And a lot of this stuff is doing this now, so I'm one of the oddballs. I don't like it, so I've gone back to, you know, analog and then kind of the front end of a perfectly clean Marshall.
I mean, for me, the thing, I'm not a Kemper guy. I mean, I've never owned one. I think if you were doing music for movies or TV shows, when you're doing that sort of thing and you've got to compose and record things quickly, then obviously, you know, you're not going to go, let's go to the record plant to do a demo for Kellogg's.
Right.
But if Kellogg's want to send me, then that's great. You're probably going to go, keep some of the money. Yeah. And we'll just do it on a Kemper. So I get that, but I get that part. But I think, for me anyway, one of the things that's really missed from guitar sounds is how does it feel? Because I can remember playing I was a drummer, as you know, before playing guitar. You're in a live band, you're like, you know, you don't, as much as I think, you know, the Roland digital drum kits and that is absolutely brilliant, they don't make you feel the same way. There's nothing like having a Marshall behind you and going, get down, or a real drum kit and do, ga. It's that feel. The way music makes you feel, you know what I mean? To me, it's the same between a totally fit, beautiful woman and a fat, ugly one. You go, I can do them both the same. No, you can't.
No.
One feels better.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and another thing...
And it could be the fat, ugly one, depending on your your taste.
Yeah.
But the point of the matter is, it's got to be, you know, is how does it make you feel? And I think a lot of that stuff... But I mean, having said that, things like fractals for just like effects alone, I mean, they're superb.
Oh, it's great.
Genius. I met the guy who's done it. It's absolutely brilliant. You know, so, I mean, if you're doing a small pub gig or a restaurant gig, I get it. But ideally, the reamping thing, I've often wondered if there's a reamping studio somewhere where, seriously, which is just for that. You could send them your files, they reamp them through an amp that's like absolutely on fire. It's still not going to get the feel thing, but the reamping thing,
and I do like. I said, and I have so many friends that have those. Like I said, I'm kind of the oddball. I'm I'm the odd man out because everybody has gone into this, but I haven't been able to get it to work for me.
Yeah.
And one of the most fun things I love to do, I have my wall of Marshalls, and they're all
Right.
live. I have 8 cabinets.
Right.
I've got the Marshall EL34 100 power amp, which has been long discontinued, and then 2 JVMs. That whole wall is live.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing because
Do you know what JVM stands for, by the way?
Is that Jim and Victoria?
Yes, it is.
See, I remember.
Bonus point for DJ.
And
Sorry,
dear
mate,
friend
carry
of
on.
mine, no, that's all right. A dear friend of mine, he's a gentleman, Santiago Alvarez.
Oh, the designer
Yeah, he
and
designed the
engineer.
thing.
He's brilliant.
And we've spoke numerous times. But I have friends of mine come over, and I've noticed the one thing. It's been for the last probably 2 years since I've put that wall together. Guys are playing, and they're smaller amps, little rigs, things like this. You know what makes you play different? They all want to come over and play, and they go, Danjo, I got to warm up. I can't believe I sound terrible playing through this. Because now we're playing through Marshalls.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they're not playing through this small little, whether it be a practice amp or through like studio monitors. Now it's here, and I told them, I go, there's no mistakes. I practice in front of that. I play, I try to get about good 3 or 4 hours a night practicing things, and I'm going around, but there's no mistakes when you've got speakers and cabinets right in front of you, and it doesn't have to be deafeningly loud, but it's a real representation of what you're doing. And just about everybody I've had come over, they say the same thing. And many of them are good players, but they go, I sound terrible through your rig. I like the way it sounds when you're playing. I like the crunch and everything.
Yeah.
But because I'm doing it slightly, it's a lesser gain. And it doesn't have all the compression and all this. And so it will really reveal you when you're that stripped down. One pickup, I got a knob, I got my tremolo, a little bit of delay, hand it to them and say, do your thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, immediately they're sitting down. That's another thing I can say I haven't done in 20 years. I don't sit down and play. I always have the strap.
Yeah.
And I'm playing standing up. And just to
unfortunately, I love Dexter, and I have to sit down. I can't. I'm not going to stand up and watch that. But it's interesting what you say, because I've seen some really good tribute bands, right? But they've always got more overdrive and distortion than the band they're trying to copy.
Oh, I've heard that too. Yeah.
Like especially if you see an AC/DC tribute band. If you listen to AC/DC, as Angus said himself, they kind of sound like huge acoustic guitars. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? They sort of do.
Oh yeah.
But you go and see an AC/DC tribute band, I guarantee you, the two main offenders are normally Iron Maiden tribute bands.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden don't use much overdrive as you think.
Oh.
They really don't.
I remember I think they were the 50-watt JMP Marshalls, and they from your neck of the woods. I think that was the Tone Master Treble Booster.
Probably some sort of overdrive.
I'm trying to think of the name. There was the cat that actually invented the damn thing. It was the no, but it was called the Rangemaster.
The Rangemaster,
Rangemaster Treble Booster. That's both what K.K. Downing and Glenn Tipton from Judas Priest, and then Adrian Murray and Steve.
Dave Murray. Adrian Smith.
Yeah, Dave.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting story about that, I don't know who was first to do it, but the way I heard it was that, Rory Gallagher. Mm-hmm. So Rory Gallagher, he had an AC30, and Brian May went to see him, and he was like, that does not sound like an AC30. Like, how the heck are you getting it to sound like that? And he said, I've got this like Rangemaster treble booster, which has got an unfortunate name because it's not really about boosting the treble.
Right.
Although I suppose it is technically, but basically what it does is a lot of those British amps, when you turn them up, they all go like that. Yeah. And that pedal via sort of voodoo or whatever, however it does it, cleans it up. Anyway, so the next day, that makes a better story than next Thursday. Apparently the next day or whenever it was, Brian May goes out, buys an AC30 if he hasn't already got one, and buys one of these Rangemasters. Yeah. And then, like you quite rightly say, all of those guys, and then of course what it was as well was the preamp. Now you got the EP booster, which you get, but it was the preamp from because there were no digital delays back then. Sure. It was the preamp from the Echoplex or Watkins or whatever it was people were using, and then they used to use that preamp was cranked up, so that and the Rangemaster used to pretty much be the thing. But it just goes to show you all those sounds that everybody's trying to copy are just incredibly simple.
Oh yeah, and I was always a huge fan of Gary Moore. Now he he was a phenomenally fast player, and so many people know him from. I always tell everybody, I loved the Gary Moore before Still Got the Blues, because a lot of those cats came along later. I'm like, people ask me, well, who's one of your influences? I said, Gary Moore. They go, you don't play that style. I'm like, you don't know that style.
Yeah.
You're unaware. I go back to listen to The Shape of Things.
Yeah.
Or something
Great
like
solo.
or Into the World. You listen
Yeah.
to that solo. You're listening to that. That's some madman. That shred before they even gave the term shred. It was dubbed that, and that was such a huge inspiration to me.
Yeah.
And that's a Strat into a Marshall, and he cranked that thing up, and they had a little bit of room reverb in there.
Well, I
And
mean,
he went to town.
I love everything Gary Moore's ever done. And one thing you might not know is on the Nightlife album, the original Still in Love with You from Thin Lizzy.
Oh, is that right? I didn't
Yeah,
know
and
that.
then they basically at the point Gary Moore had left the band and Brian Robertson had joined the band, and they said, "Oh, who's this guitar player?" And they said, "Oh, it's Brian Robertson." Well, it wasn't.
Right.
Gary Moore played that original Still in Love with You solo, and even going back to the Black Rose album. And if you don't, I mean, you probably know all these records, but if you haven't got Back on the Streets,
Oh, it's great stuff.
fantastic record.
Yeah.
You got a bit more heavy metal later on with Corridors of Power.
Sure.
Although I did love Victims of the Future, which is what I believe is Shapes of Things.
Yeah.
What a killer solo that is, man.
That was great. And he was a great legato player. He was doing all that. He had legato, staccato. He had so many different styles, and he had such a monster vibrato. And vibrato is something I'm a huge fan of. I meet a lot of younger people, and they're like, what's the most important thing right now to work on? I'm like, your vibrato will be your fingerprint that people will recognize what you do, because you got to stop playing fast sometime. I'd say go back and listen to Gary Moore, and they're like, is he playing fast? A lot of younger people. I'm like, let's forget about that for right now. Let's go back and let's make a statement with your music, with your vibrato, and
No, I mean, Gary Moore. And I mean, I always wonder, how did it get from, because to me, the guys with the really amazing vibrato, I got to bring up Paul Kossoff.
Oh, incredible. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Gary Moore, obviously massive fan. Eric Clapton. I was never an Eric Clapton fan, believe it or not, but I went to see him live. It was the same with Jeff Beck. I've told the story before, so I won't go on about it. But Michael Caswell took me to see Jeff Beck, and I wasn't really that excited, to be honest. On record, I never got it. And then we saw him live. It was like, wow, best guitar player I've ever seen live. Yeah. Then later on, Eric Clapton was playing, and Jeff Beck was supporting. And I thought, oh, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, you're dead, basically. But no, he was fantastic. They were both absolutely fantastic. But my question to you is like, how did the vibrato get from all those players when it all started to go a bit Whitesnake? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where did that, how did that?
And I think literally John Sykes was one of the first guys that I had ever really...
And he's one of the few people that does it that I like.
Yeah.
Oddly enough. It seems to suit him, but then everybody else was like, well, that's what we're doing now.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, and I think that's what killed so many people off in the 80s, where they got really turned off to that, because there was an emphasis on how fast are we going to play the scales or whatever we're going to play, and there was no emphasis on the melody and the vibrato, but that was great with guys like Marty Friedman, a lot of those, a lot of the shrapnel guys.
The only thing is, though, Dan, I would actually slightly disagree with that. And the reason I would was because what I started to find was these guys couldn't play without vibrato. It was like every note they did was squab, 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 wob. There was like, no.
Yeah, right.
And not even watch instructional videos. And even when the guys say, for example, whoever, I'm not going to mention any names, but even if they're going through if you and I were doing a guitar clinic and we were showing somebody a pentatonic scale, we'd go, right, okay, it's dum dum, and we'd play through the scale because we're not talking about inflections or nuances at this point.
Sure.
And you see these instructions when they go wob, 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 wob.
They did.
What's
A lot of those
with
guys.
all the wob?
Yeah, they did take it a bit extreme, but then there was some of the other stuff, maybe in kind of more in the hair metal thing where talk about that term. I remember first hearing it. I thought it was hilarious. A buddy of mine was talking about, these a lot of those hair metal bands. Those guys are using a mosquito vibrato, and I thought it was really quite funny.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to get varied, even regardless of the speed of the song. Yeah. That's my sort of point. It's like wob if the song's going, oh yeah, baby. It's like wob if it's going, it's wob. You go, And the other thing is like, if you think about, look, I don't know, but I would imagine the human voice was the first thing to actually do any vibrato.
Right.
I don't think it was Les Paul with EMGs, although we should probably get that guy who works for Joe Rogan to Google it. Yeah. But I think it was, and you normally find, apart from, my dad used to listen to Eartha Kitt and people like, and they were a bit, but normally it's and then they add the vibrato.
Yeah.
Where'd that go? And guitars and violins seem to copy that, so there'd at least be some note before the vibrato came in. And then it was always like, don't forget the note. We don't.
That's why Gilmour was the king of that. He's still amazing. My gosh, because he was the guy. He would take that note and hold it almost where you think it's getting ready to go into feedback, and then he'd add the vibrato. And he's another one of my. There's so many of these great players, and that's where I have a lot of young players going, "Oh, you got to be kidding me, right? You don't listen to these guys." I'm like, "Are you kidding?" I love music. Yeah. And I'm moved by an emotion, and what's on my phone? Oh, you'd have a chuckle. The music. Because it bounces all over, and I have a lot of friends that they go, Danny Jew, you're listening to all the really heavy, really super technical players. I don't have a single album by shred players. I don't listen to. I'm moved more by emotion and melody. I love stuff like I'll get flamed for this later on, but I mean like Tori Amos. I
like
people
pop music.
I love, because I'm just such a sucker for the melody, and it goes back to the vibrato and creating an emotion. You've got to have phrasing. And that's the one thing I spend so much time with, creating phrasing and memorable things with all the music that I put out. Everything I do, I try to make sure I've got a memorable melody line. Now, if I go back and if it's stuck in my head for a couple of days, rather than just being all purely technical, I've got to have a lasting. There's got to be a melody in there somewhere.
I don't know what you think about this, but this is what I tend to find. So, like, say for example, my personal opinion is when music and guitar separated somewhere in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, whenever it was, that was when it was all over for me. Because when I grew up, you'd have your Deep Purple song, great riff, great things, you get your 8 or 16 bar solo, maybe they do an extended one at the end.
Sure.
Right? And that was it. But when people said, we don't need the music bit anymore, oh, man. Forget that. You know what I mean? It just started to become, and everything started to sound like something Joe Satriani had thrown away. Yeah, including literally. Some of my stuff, to be honest. Just being honest about that. Because you feel at the time you're under pressure to.
Oh yeah.
But what I tend to find was with some of those guitar players, I won't mention them, as much as talented as they are, and this, that, and the other, I found I would listen to it for a while from a curiosity point of view. How are they doing that? How does he do that? But the trouble is, once the latest Tab book come out, and you sort of thought, that's how he's doing it, I'd never really go back and listen to that music. I always found myself going back and listening to more song orientated.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm not a Bon Jovi fan, by any stretch of the imagination, and you can give me as much shit as that as you want. But the fact of the matter is Richie Sambora is brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. And so when you on some of the songs he would play on, he'd have a good solid song with a great guitar solo. And I've seen him live, and he's, in fact, if you want to talk about an underrated player, maybe he's not underrated. Maybe I don't know why I'm even saying that.
And great vibrato, and I love his note choice. Just
a great player.
Yeah,
I see him live in London years ago, and he was brilliant. Honestly, I was shocked.
Oh man!
Only because he was in a sort of pop rock band, and I was like,
right.
I guess I was a little bit kind of, whatever. But I sort of saw him live, thought, flipping out, kudos.
Well, one of the guys I was absolutely stymied by was remember the blonde-haired guys in the Nelson, I think in the late 80s.
But
it was Brett Carson.
Yes.
And I was stymied by what an amazing player he was. And he's playing the pop type of stuff, and then him and his, as they always referred to it as his partner in crime, T.J. Helmrich.
Yeah.
There were so many amazing players, but they were playing the they were.
Well, that's a legato technique too.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
And slide playing as well.
Oh, just all of it. And like I said, there's so many amazing players that I love and appreciate. There's so many different styles, but I'm very mood driven. Other times I kind of don't want to hear all that. I'll go back to, but it's just all depends on the mood that I'm in.
Do you not find the whole kind of like, and I've got nothing against the shred thing. I mean, I'm a big, I'm a big guy for sort of saying like, watch whatever TV you want, and if you don't like it, then watch something else.
Sure.
Don't sit there writing comments about how crap you think it is.
Oh yeah.
What's the point? Just turn the TV channel over.
Oh yeah.
That's my sort of thing. But do you not think a lot of the shred thing is a little bit like sort of stamp collecting? Everybody's I've got the new guy. Oh, right, you think you got the new guy? I got the new guy. It's almost like MMA, isn't it?
Oh, it
is
too.
For guitar, you know, it's
Yeah.
like, your guys, that's not fast. This is fast. And the fact of the matter is, this is a big subject on things like Instagram and that. Some of it is definitely miming. I mean, it's 100%.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. And I try to, I want to do two things. If people are going to say, oh, okay, you're the fastest player, but I also want to be the slowest, because there was stuff that I put out last year. It is so creepy slow.
Right.
Because there's a real trick to that, to being able to create an emotional phrase at 60 beats per minute. Try it. And I've got two. I'm really proud of these two pieces that I put out. I did a song called Mississippi Sled, and it is just the slowest, grindiest, you know, what I call Delta blues, and it's really crazy slow. And then on one of the same songs I put out on that record last year was a song called Chase, which is probably the fastest thing. So I'm literally covering two different bases.
Why not? I mean, when I was playing drums, he passed on, unfortunately now, Bob Armstrong. One of the things that we'd have to practice different grooves at 50 BPM.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'd have to turn the sound off and then just do it to the light.
Wow.
On the metronome. And so it's amazing how, and then you can even take that further where you have the metronome, and then what you do is you have a slow tempo, and then say, for example, you clap for a bar, right?
Yeah.
And the metronome's just a light. Or you can set it so that it will stop for a bar.
Right.
So you go for a bar, then the metronome maybe goes off for a bar.
Yeah.
And then you have to come back in, and hopefully you're back on the same beat.
On time.
There's a brilliant bass player who does great videos on that, Victor Wooten.
Yeah.
Anybody
who
wants that stuff. So listen, talking about music.
Sure.
So, you know, I want you to talk about your Atlantic record deal that
that was so
sadly
close
didn't come about, but
oh,
let us
man,
know.
It was,
Talk us through that.
It was last year on February 9th. It was a really interesting thing. My older sister, Susie Jo, she passed away. She got that COVID-19 shot. Yeah, and 40 minutes later, she was dead. So
from the shot?
She got the shot, and it was a terrible thing. I remember her, you know, she's doing the selfie, driving, hey, I'm going to go get the shot. So this is not to turn this into something political or whatever, but this is just a series of events that led me into this. This is what happened. And I wrote this song that I ended up putting out. It was called Nuisance, because when I was a kid, you know, I've always been hyper.
Right.
Now, I mean, you know, as hyper as I was when I was a kid, and she used to always say, Danny Joe, you're such a nuisance. She wouldn't say it that nice. She had a few other expletives.
A few other exploratory.
And I did this song called Nuisance, and I thought it was just so perfect. And I called her up and I said, I got a song, you got to hear it. I'm getting ready to put it out on, on YouTube. And she goes, well, I'm baking brownies right now, but I promise you I'll call you tomorrow after I get my shot, and I'm going to give it a listen to. And sadly enough, she never got to hear it. She went and got that shot 40 minutes later. She was face dead in the closet. Boom, bang.
Did they know why? Was there a post-mortem? Oh,
had a heart attack. God. Bang. That was one of the, so.
And was there any physical reason why she may have had that as well, or just?
Not that kind. I mean, she wasn't in super shape anyway, but it was just.
But not heart. She wasn't in heart attack shape.
No, not at all.
No.
And so when that happened, and so I put the song up the next day. I might have waited a day or two, but I said, no, I just want to do this, because I went through the trouble to put it up. And had an overwhelming, just so much support and love from a lot of people. And had a gal contact me, and she's like going, hey, you know what, you should continue this. You've got some really good stuff. Don't put this away. Your sister would want to see you continue.
Absolutely.
And I know somebody that can probably help you with this. And it was actually Phil Verone from Saigon Kick.
Well, okay, yeah, I've heard of that
he's
band.
a well-known, and he's a gentleman. He's just an incredible guy. And he was like, well, let me listen to some of the things you've done. Of course, he hasn't heard of me. You know, he didn't know anything about me. But, well, let me hear something you did. So I started sending him some things. And he was like, you need to come over here now. I want to hear this. I want to see you do some of this. Loved it. And we started working with it. And he's got his own record label through.
Right.
I'm trying to remember the name of that he works with. I think Rotten Brain Creations. And so he's done all kinds of really good stuff with a lot of good people. So he was very intrigued, but he started working with a lot of things at that time. He got involved with, I think, the History Channel and putting out a bunch of different bands. And the more time went on, so he was very enthused about it, but he was getting a lot of offers to do a lot of other things. And some time kept going on and going on and going on.
Right.
And he was saying that, hey, we can do this. He goes, I guarantee you we'll pitch this. And by September, He goes, we're going to pitch this to Atlantic. And he goes, I think you've got such a different style. He goes, you
Yeah.
got this, he called it a rattlesnake. He goes, you got this sleazy, this bluesy slide thing. And then he goes, and he was the one that said, he goes, you're the fastest player I've ever heard, but you're also the slowest. He goes, which not many people can do, to go from that and be very, very content playing in that, what I call that greasy, sleazy delta. I'm very happy in there. I'll stay in that pool all damn day long.
Yeah.
I love it.
But it's nice you've got a couple of extra gears if you choose to use them.
Thought I'd throw them out there.
This is what I'm going to let you continue the story, but this is what I always find fascinating about, people who knock fast guitar playing. I go, listen, give me all the technique in the world, as long as I get a choice as to when I use it.
Sure.
Right? Even if I choose to just use it once or twice. Why wouldn't you have it?
Yeah.
So if you're saying that you can't stop playing fast, well, that's not a problem with playing fast. That's a problem with your ability to make decisions.
Right. Sure.
Do you know what I mean? It's like if you can't stop drinking Jameson's whiskey and you find out waking up in a pool of your own vomit, right? That's not the bottle of whiskey's fault, is it?
Right.
The whiskey didn't sort of go, oh, come on, let's have a, you picked the thing up, stuck it in your gob, and then threw up in my garbage disposal.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was your choice.
Yeah.
Not. Anyway, continue on. So
he had a lot of things going on, and he was also working with Red Dragon Cartel. Jakey.
Oh yeah,
huge fan of mine. But he's got so many irons in the fire. He's got so many things going on, and I think I use that term, kind of slipped through the cracks. I think he just got so busy. We started conversing less and less, and then there's a lot of enthusiasm in the beginning.
Right.
And then I was,
getting frustrated.
And then it got to the point where I just wasn't hearing from him as much, and then it kind of got to the point where I'm like, I think you should probably focus on what you're doing. This is pretty much what I said to him. I said, you go ahead and do your thing, put your time into it, and nothing worse than when we first started talking. I was like, I went home, I was so elated, I was almost in tears. I'm like, man, finally, at my age, I think I might get recognized for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because I've always been a hard worker. I've always had a great work ethic. I work a regular job now. I'm getting ready to buy a postal business of all things. I don't make money I haven't made money as a musician ever, really. You play a few little bar gigs and things. So I thought that this was something that was really going to happen. And I think the more Phil got busier and busier and busier, and but it was the most exciting time, I thought, last year. I thought how perfect. My sister passed, and that was a real downer. And then this picking up, and he's like, I believe in what you're doing. He goes, you've got something that's so unique because you're touching on so many things, but at the core of it, he was saying is kind of like a dirty, gritty Aerosmith style rock and roll. That's my songwriting. That's what I cut my teeth. That kind of thing.
But he's absolutely right. And if this makes you feel any better, because I'm going to get probably lazy, but anyway, I was watching this movie, documentary, a couple of weeks ago, and the police chief of LA, the police chief, not me, not some guy who doesn't like policemen, the police chief of LA provided this quote for the movie, which said, the only problem with the Los Angeles police force is the only place we can recruit from is the human race.
Wow.
Right, that was the police chief who said that. Now, not to critic, because I know there's good and bad and everything, but I'm just saying, people are people.
Sure.
And another really good example I can give you is like many, I won't say the guy's name, but many years ago, a very talented keyboard player that I knew was putting together, had done this amazing original music, and he pulled all these guys in to do a band, guys and girls in to do a band. They were actually rehearsing at a studio near me in England. The first day of the rehearsal, this guy gets a phone call to go and do this job. This guy gets a phone call to do this job. It was all done in one day. So the fact of the matter is, just like your man there, probably very enthusiastic about the project.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, humans being humans, they get offered $100 more. I'm not saying that happened with him, I don't know.
Sure,
but they get this kind of offer to do this, that and the other, and they're like, oh, okay, well, I'll come back to that. And that's just how people are. Martin Howes always says to me, everything in life is about timing. Don't. But the only other thing I would say to you and anybody else who out there is watching is like, you've got part of the reason that I've never been interested in record deals or anything like that, as an exciting thing to it, is I've seen so many people in my life be so downhearted and destroyed where they've got ripped off.
Oh, man,
you know what I mean?
that's rough, yeah.
And I've always thought to myself, I never want that to be me. Now, I did end up suffering some of that from Lick Library, which is a story for another day. But for many, many years, it was like I made my own things, I made my own products. So
Sure.
you don't get the stardom. Like, I'm no big star or anything. I don't want to be. You know what I mean?
No.
Unless there's
very
drugs
well known.
and women involved. I can be persuaded with the right stuff. But because what I will say is, because I think in some way we're all living the same life in some way. You get more here, but you get less there.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you see what I'm saying? You might get this guy who is in your mind is like, say, for example, Dr. Dre. Brilliant, great producer. He can't say, he's not, in my opinion anyway.
Right.
I think he has to give his missus like $300,000 or $350,000 a month.
Wow.
So imagine a guy who sold a company like Beats for X amount of multi-billion, whatever it was, and now he's got to pay his ex-wife all that money so she can go and spend it on other men.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying she's doing that.
Right.
Right? Don't send anyone round to my house. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he's got the fame and this, that, and the other, but I guarantee you every month when he writes that check, he's like,
Oh, I know.
So it's
Yeah.
like, and plus the fact, I honestly think there's a lot of money for you to be made, to make for yourself. So anyway,
Well,
we
I'm
can talk
grateful.
about...
I tell you what, I appreciate the encouragement too, and this is such an amazing thing. I tell you what, when you first asked me to do this, I am grateful to you, Stuart.
Oh.
From the bottom of my heart, swear to God, because here's the reason why. Very few people, and I have no idea why. I think I'm one of the easiest people in the world to talk to. Very few guys want to talk to me about guitar.
Wow.
I got about 4 people in the world, honestly, that want to talk to me. I got one, my buddy Rahul, he's in India. Another guy, Joseph, he's in the UK. I love guitar. Music is my life, and yet I have very few people that want to talk. You'd be surprised how few Facebook friends I have. There's just not a lot of people that are.
But there's an old saying where this might come across a bit harsh. I don't want it to, but they say, you've got to be a participant in your own rescue.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you're very nice, underachieved. You don't walk in and say like, "Hey man, I'm here.
Right.
Everybody look at me." Mm-hmm. You don't do that. But you may have noticed that the people that do that tend to get, it was a really interesting thing with this Colby, this Colby Covington.
The UFC fighter,
right, so
UFC, yeah.
Everyone's like, even the Dana White guy, this guy's an a-hole, and everyone's like,
yeah.
But apparently, so the story goes, he was almost out of the UFC, and they said, unless you start adopting some sort of character or whatever,
sure.
WWE, you're going to be done. And he didn't want to be done. And I don't know if any of this is true, this is what I heard.
Sure.
Right? And so he's like, right, well, I don't want that. And so he basically went completely WWE on everyone's butts.
Right.
And now he's Colby Covington.
Yeah.
Right? Now he's got his money. Now he's got all the fights he wants. So all I'm saying is like, because you're such a super nice guy and you're very unassuming and you don't toot your own horn and blah, 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 I don't think there's anything wrong with a bit of horn tooting.
Right.
And I don't.
And I got a lot of friends, and like I told you, when I first meet people always sing to me, they go, Danny Joe, you were the last person I ever thought would play guitar. You look like a cop or you look ex-military.
Yeah.
They all say, and I'm talking 100 people a month will end up saying to me, you don't even look like somebody that listens to music. I can't believe this is what you do. I'm like, so in one way it's kind of cool, but maybe I've had a lot of people say, yeah, you're too nice a guy. You got to tell people more about what you do. And I'm like, I don't know what to say.
Well, I definitely think there can some tuitional product for me, especially kind of on the fast thing, would be, I'm not talking about don't do the other stuff, but I just know what people go for. Mm-hmm. I think at Lick Library years ago, I'd love to say this person's name, but I can't. But there's a certain person who's really widely known as a shredder. Mm-hmm. And, I actually phoned this person up and said, hey, I want to do a video, because I always used to come up with the Lick Library titles, you know what I mean? Titles of the videos. I used to make them very simple. That was I would never say how to learn the Lydian mode in an existential situation that will provide you with spiritual creaminess. I wouldn't do that. I'm going like, you're in a music shop, you pick up a DVD, right? How to play electric blues. Okay, I want to do that.
Right.
And so I had this TV title, How to Play Fast. Mm-hmm. Not how to play really fast, not just how to play fast. Phone this guy up. Hey man, you're the man. You're the guy, right? How to play fast. And he's like, I'm trying, I'm not really trying to be known as a fast guitar player. I said, well, have you ever thought about not playing fast then? You know, of course, silence on the other end of the phone. He was pissed at me for what I said, but I'm like, well, then stop playing if you want. If you don't want to be known, you know, Dexter's known as a serial killer. You don't want to be known as a serial killer. Stop killing motherfuckers. You know what I mean? That would be my advice. Right? I'm not law enforcement. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I've seen one on TV. But that's what I would do. If you want to be stopped being called a serial killer, stop killing people. But that's just my advice.
That's a good point, you know, and that's the thing.
So, you know, anyway, something we can talk about. Everything's about time. The good thing is you're looking really great. You don't look your age at all. And to be honest with you, I think success. I've known a lot of people. So I'll switch back. I've known a lot of people that when they're successful in their younger years, they get taken advantage of. You know, they're foolish with their money. I'm not saying you would do that. So sometimes being more successful and making more money in the later years, you're going to be less likely to spend it on hookers and blow. Hookers and blow. You know what I'm saying? No, I know you're not that sort of guy anyway, but you take my point, right?
Yeah, no, it's a very good point too, and that's the thing is, and I think it took me years to come to the style that I have now.
Right.
Because the biggest thing is, and here's another thing is, I have a lot of friends that are always asking me, they go, Danny Joe, how do you not know how to play any of these other styles? It was a very conscious choice when I was very young, and it was in the early 80s. I saw everybody jump on the Randy Rhodes, Eddie Van Halen, Yngwie, and I said, man, there's going to be a million guys. I was going to do something completely unique and original, and at that time there was such a subdivision, and there still kind of is now. Blues players don't play shred, and shred players don't. Case in point, I had in the last probably 2 years, somebody would hear my version of Amazing Grace. And even our dear friend Michelangelo Badio asked me, he said, when he heard me play that, he goes, how did you have that type of restraint to not want to take off and play fast? I said, because that's in my soul. I wanted to really put that out. But I've had so many guys that say, I had a guy say, you'd be my favorite blues player, except until you go into all that fast stuff. Then I've had shred players that said, you know what, I love what you do, but then you do this redneck thing. And I'm like, look, I keep telling guys, there's no guitar police. So people are so compartmentalized.
Well, there is. It's just they decided to be it. They would. No one ever hired them to do that. But the interesting thing I got, the other thing was that I did an interview with Ron Thal.
Oh, he's a buddy of mine. He's
great
a wonderful guy. Great player.
He was in Guns N' Roses at the time. I went and picked him up they were doing a residency, I want to say, at I don't remember which was it, Hard Rock, I think it was.
Yeah.
They were doing a residency there. And so I picked him up from the thing. We went to a friend's place where we filmed the interview, and he had the opposite thing where you might know it wasn't too many notes. I know that's Steve Morse, but it was one of those crazy tapping things that he does, right?
With a thimble all
whatever.
That.
I don't know, whatever it was. But you know, he wasn't playing. He was just telling me about it.
Sure.
And there's actually, I don't know where the video got lost at the end of the interview. I played drums. There was a drum kit there, and we jammed together for quite some time. It was great. And he complimented me on my drumming. You know what I mean?
Amazing.
And I told him to shut the fuck up. No, that bit never happened. But anyway, and he had the same thing where he's in a music store or wherever it was, and the guy was like, have you ever thought about playing the blues? So it doesn't matter what you do, Danny.
Yeah.
So I'm smart.
Now here's a quick story
Smart
with Ron, how I met Ron. It was actually here in Vegas. There was a guitar. It was some sort of guitar convention they were trying to have here in Vegas at Cashman Field. And I go and I meet this wonderful guy. It was Ron Thal. He's playing the first time I ever saw a Vigier guitar.
Right.
He was playing the Diesel. And we just hit it off right away. He goes, would you like to play this? So I was playing a little bit and he'd play, and I loved what he did. And he commented right away on my picking.
Right.
And what's really interesting is the fact that he ended up, this was my first experience pretty much with the internet. You know, I didn't know much about forums or any of that. But he dropped my name in a particular forum, just like that. He goes, I think his right hand is possessed. He goes, I've never seen anybody.
I would agree with that.
Ron said, and I thank God for him that he, you know, that was kind of him to say. But I tell you what, I'd never experienced anything like that. Talk about a backlash. I must have had 300 guys come at me with torches. I mean, it was bad. People were like, who's this guy? You know, blah, 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 blah. And then And then he even had to jump back in. He goes, guys, hey, this is Christmas. This guy's a friend of mine. But it was merciless. And I thought, well, and all I was doing was, hey, this is what I like to do.
Yeah, I mean,
he said, and it was, but so he was one of my first friends that was somebody that's matter of fact, I'd say the first person I knew that was actually well known and a very accomplished player. But so Ron
it's ridiculous. I mean, you talk about, I've told this story before, so I'll sort of like paraphrase it, but did you ever see my Christmas record?
I've seen bits and pieces of it. Matter of fact, you shared with me just last holiday. Yes.
Right. So I did a Christmas record a few years ago, and it was part of an orchestral album that I did. And believe it or not, I was just trying to write. I had a few up-tempo things, and I was going to write a ballady thing. And I started to write this ballady thing, and I just suddenly went, "It's Christmas." I thought, oh, I don't know why. So anyway, I went with it.
Yeah.
And I made the Christmas record. Did a video for it in a 600-year-old church in England.
How cool is that?
It was cool. Wow. I thought so. Anyway, long story short, puts it in on YouTube. I'll just give you one of the comments, and if you've got a worse one on your thing, I want to hear it. So this guy wrote, "This record gave me cancer, then it gave me AIDS." Right? This guy. Right. So what I did, I love. I don't see any point in going down the negative route.
Sure.
Because then it's just more. So I wrote back and I said, well, which one did you get first? And once you knew you had it, did you care about getting the second one? Because you're dead either way, right? And so he didn't reply. And then all I did was I went back. I did another thing. I did at my electric guitar show a little while ago. Did this one piece that people thought was about somebody, but it was actually like a composite character, although, and anyway, again, loads of things, and the guys were writing all this horrible stuff about me, and I go, oh, thanks for the comment, it really helps the algorithm promote the video. So I was just like, so anyway, I would say is like, if you do get that stuff, engage. Because the more you engage, the more comments that you get, and then the more it pushes your video forward. So these people are actually helping you. As long as you can get over the fact that they are literally... I mean, look, the interesting thing for me is whenever you go to any of these people's channels, have they got any videos and can they play?
Armchair critics,
No.
Yeah, and then the cool thing is now, and I thank God for Mike Varney. He's another one that really helped me. Okay, the hate mail all stopped because it's... I forget how many years ago it's been, but he gave me a really cool, just a wonderful write-up in Guitar World, in his spotlight, guitar player.
Has there ever been a chance to do something with Mike? Because he's in town now, right?
He is, and I think he's given me a couple of really, really cool write-ups, and it was wonderful. Because
but I'm talking about in terms of making a record.
I think his thing is, I'm pretty sure, because all his guys, they're all theory wizards. I know nothing about it. Right. I hear everything in my head, and I have people going, wait a minute, Danny Joe, you're doing all these harmonies, you're playing all these scales. They're things that I've created, and after 45 years of playing, I hear something in my head. I know where it is here.
Right.
There's not a problem with it, but I don't have the ability to communicate that. I just tell everybody, I'm like, we're all accomplished musicians here. If you can't follow me, this isn't going to work. But I think that could have been one of the biggest reasons. And I had a friend of mine that had said that. But Mike has been awesome. Whenever I see him, he always gives me a big hug. But when he gave me these write-ups, it kind of silenced a lot of the people.
Right.
They started shutting up because it's like, if they're going to say something stupid, and this is the guy that he pretty much coined the phrase, shred, and brought this elite roster of these really great players out there, and to have gotten a spotlight write-up. And then and people have said, wow, Mike Varney says really cool things about you. But that to me is really cool.
Do you think, though, it really is about the shred? And I'll give you an example of why I'm thinking about this. Like, I've known Michelangelo Bayer for a long time.
Sure.
Right? He's told me to fuck off. I've told him to fuck off. He stayed at my house. I've stayed at his. I knew his mum and dad when they were alive. His mum used to say, Stuart's your best friend, Michael. You know what I mean? Because I was always honest with him.
He's awesome.
But the thing is, when you've got somebody that's doing something extreme, like he does, like you do, or different, Rush is another good example. It's almost like people want to, I always live my life by it, people want to be first at coming second. So it's almost like, well, let's just see what everybody else thinks. Now, Michael's revered as being the number one shredder of all time.
Yeah.
He's respected and loved throughout the thing. But it wasn't always like that.
No.
Now, there was time when the guitar worlds wouldn't touch him, and now they're all over him. I think I don't know if he's been on the cover, but I'm pretty sure he has. And you know, like I say, they now it's like, oh yeah, he's the coolest guy ever, super talented and ever. But for some reason, Rush were the same. They did a thing. The guys from South Park did that thing where they said, if you can't give it up for Rush now, after everything, you're just being a dick.
Yeah.
And they're right.
Definitely.
I'll feel the same about you and Michael. If you can't give it up for Michelangelo, you're just being a dick.
Oh yeah, and I got to publicly thank Michael. Michael is really cool because Michael turned India onto what I like to do. Because for whatever reason, I mean, it's I guess he was doing a clinic or he was doing something over in India, and he happened to mention my name for whatever reason.
Right.
And it was just, he didn't have to do that, but he did. And now some of my closest friends that we speak on a regular basis are saying, Michelangelo said really, really nice things about you. And it was shortly after he did that clinic, there was literally a week that I probably got 100 new guitar player friends when he was over in India.
Yeah.
And he happened to mention that. So I used to think that, well, I teched for him. I think we hit it off a really good friendship. And I thought, well, maybe he likes me as a nice guy. Maybe he doesn't think much about my guitar playing. But he said some very, very nice things. And it's he also helped to silence a lot of people, because when you've got somebody that carries the weight, he's the end-all shredder. He's the number one shredder of all time. And you've got somebody like that saying, check out this guy in Las Vegas. This is pretty cool. This is a little different thing, but check this out.
Yeah. And I think
you can't buy press like that.
No, and I think one thing that's, because like I say, I know Michael well, played on maybe 2 of his records, at least one anyway. I think one of the things that people don't know about Michael is he's a legitimate composer.
Oh, he's brilliant, yeah.
You know, he's got a degree in music. I mean, you could be a degree in music and write the worst music of all time. You know, I mean, that doesn't guarantee you anything. It just means now you know what you're doing shit. Before, and you can describe to people why. But Michael's a legitimate composer. I don't know if I've got this Robert on that Rainforest tune and loads of, I Do For You, and you know, if you take the shredding out of that, I'm not saying you should, but that Rainforest one and lots of other tunes I can think of which I know the names. If you take the shredding out, you could put that in a movie tomorrow, and it'd be a legitimate, beautiful composition.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know until last week that he sang. He's got a great voice.
I heard him
something on Facebook, and I was like, wow, I was blown away. He's got a great voice.
Yeah. So he's obviously, but I guess from his point of view, there's some marketing issue. I don't know now. Obviously, he feels it's the right time. But same with my Christmas record.
Sure.
If he'd have sung with a voice like that 10 years ago, there might have been a backlash.
Oh yeah.
Because apparently with my thing, you know, I didn't, just like you, I didn't. I don't care if I do a Christmas record. I write comedy songs as well, which I also get a lot of flack for. You know what I mean? But I didn't know. But unfortunately, people have you in their eye as this certain thing. Like one guy, for me, he was like, I've watched your DVDs in my bedroom so many times. I've learned so much from you. And you go like, how dare you do anything else? Just like the subgenre girl we were talking about with the Brazilian. Did she have a Brazilian? Or was it? Oh, yeah. Anyway, or a boyfriend was a Brazilian. You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
No, I do. And it's, I was a little intimidated coming over here because you are a musician's musician, guitar player. That's what it is. I'm a guitar player. And I think that, like you were asking, maybe why Mike or a lot of people haven't approached. I think that people think that once you hit a certain level of technique, or people have heard my songs, people are always talking about, where are you coming up with these chords, these inversions? I don't know. It's what I hear in my head.
Yeah.
And that's the sound that I want. So people automatically assume that they just, you're as schooled as you are. I just play. I don't know. I've learned where the notes are, but I couldn't tell you the name of any of the chords, any of that. And I think that what happens is a lot of times people have these expectations. And like I said, if I were to share some of my songs and play in front of you, because you'd have to tell me what I'm actually playing. But
but
you're a musical genius as well. You've got this incredible. Your writing. I've heard your music. Everything that you do. So somebody like me, that I'm a guitar player. You're a musician.
Yeah.
And I think that with the whole technique thing, so many times people are just assuming that, I've got a degree. People go, I'm sure wherever you got your degree in music, I just hear it. It's all in my head. So.
Believe it or not, I haven't really. The only sort of official lessons I ever had was from a guy called Sean Baxter. Well, actually, no, I had some theory lessons with a guy called Amit Sen. They weren't guitar lessons, they were just like theory lessons. And then I was trying to do some jazz. I was trying to play over jazz changes at the time. So I went to a guy called Sean Baxter, and I think he got a bit frustrated with me because I didn't understand a lot of what he was saying. But he actually gave me this one fabulous lesson, which was like, pretty much to the thing of if the chord if it's a dominant chord that resolves, use the altered scale. If it doesn't resolve, use Lydian flat 7. I'll sort of grab the piece back and go, yeah, I'll have that. And that's worked for me pretty much ever since. Yeah. But believe it or not, it's like the sound always comes first. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody in caveman days wrote out a melody and then they goes, well, how do we turn this into a sound?
Right.
Someone went, whatever it was back then, and then they figured it out.
Yeah, right.
That's how it happened. So I don't think, but my one Achilles heel when it comes to theory is I just love a good riff. I went to see AC/DC in 2008, and when they go, ba-ba-dow, 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 I'm just there. You can shove the theory up. I mean, I'm not against theory. I think it's great. The one thing about it is that I think people do miss is that if you are going to work with any number of musicians, you or somebody has got to have some ability to read and write and understand music. Because how you going to... I used to work with a guy who was a total idiot. And he used to, I'm not joking. He'd go, and he'd say, well, I'll just sing them the parts. I go, really? So you got a 60-piece orchestra.
Wow.
What are you going to do? You're going to sing this first row, then the second. By the time you got to the fourth row, the first row I've already forgotten. I think a lot of people don't realise, even in the olden days, that a lot of the composers had scribes. Mm-hmm. Where they might go, and someone would have to write it out.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, how are you going to get an orchestra to play it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, you've played in 4-piece bands before. It's hard enough to get people to remember a fucking AC/DC song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Let alone... So it's all just because you don't need it to be a great player.
See, and I've had a lot of really good friends that are very accomplished in their musical studies. Got really into it, almost like quantum physics and mathematics. I mean, they've taken it to the nth degree. Yeah. And Danny Joe, you got to sit down with me. I'm gonna teach you theory. Now, this has happened over the last 30 years, and all of a sudden, my mind starts to wander because I get to the point where I can hear it here, and I don't know, maybe it's a closed-minded way of thinking, Stuart, but what happens is so quickly, like all the stuff that I did on this last record, and most of my stuff, think of it as almost like Morse code. Yeah. I'm not kidding. I will get an idea. I'll start coming up with different, I hear something. There it is. It's like an entire song. I'm talking within 10 or 15 minutes. I hear the whole thing. It's all done. It's all together. And then my friends that have tried to sit down, I'm almost in one way almost afraid to kill that spontaneity because another dear friend of mine that has said he went to school, he got his degree, and he got very into it. And he said once he finally got out of that, to go back and when he got into a band, to stop listening to the music and go thinking of, okay, I'm a whatever it is, whatever mode where I'm doing this and this. And he said he got to the point where he was thinking so much about, this isn't theoretically correct, but maybe I'm playing it. And he said it took him about a good 3 or 4 months to kind of shed a little bit of that, to go back into feel it and come up with that way rather than thinking about, theoretically, is this really correct? Do you know,
I block people on Facebook all the time because I just cannot be bothered with the drama these days. But and admittedly I was drunk at the time, but somebody said, can somebody explain to me about music theory? It was on one of these, and I said, well, first and foremost, it's a theory. So of course I get these other guys, some idiot bass player who's never gone out of his bedroom probably. He's like, theory is a combination of everything we've learned. No, it isn't. It's a description. Okay. It's not. It's a description of what you've learned. Scott Henderson said the one thing he learned at GIT was the names of the things he was already playing.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Yeah. And so, but where I will make a case for theory is I used to teach guitar a lot. Now, you've got a great ear. You're obviously a very gifted person. Not everybody's like that. Sometimes it takes longer to develop that. So in other words, if somebody comes in and you're trying to explain why these chords work or why this works or why this sounds good. Sometimes you need a bit of theory to give them a kind of a groundwork.
Sure.
And also in a way to make them believe that there is a pathway to learning. But I also say to people, if it sounds good, it is good. If you take a typical thing in some of the Metallica music or the heavy metal music, they'll take like a E minor pentatonic and then just throw every other note available in there somewhere. There isn't really a theory for that.
Right,
but the problem is with the theory guys, right, is that if I take this mat, right, and I throw it over there, they'll come up with a reason why that was good. You see what I mean? You've got to be careful with that as well.
Yeah.
Because what these lot of people do, in music colleges, they've got to. It's a bit like religion to me.
Sure.
Like in religion, no one really knows what Jesus was like. Well, no one I know, not unless they're over 2,000 years old.
Sure.
Nobody really knows what happened. Nobody knows this and that. So, and we also know history is always written by the winners. So what tends to happen is they got to come up with a solid system that's absolutely right. Otherwise, you won't put your hand in your pocket and give them any money on a Sunday. And music theory is the same.
Sure.
Unless these people can convince you that they know all the answers to everything, you're not going to give them the money. So it's a sales pitch. I always say, Lick Live is a great thing. Go learn. But if you come up, my old teacher used to say, drum teacher used to say to me, it's great to learn the rudiments, it's great to learn all this stuff. He goes, but Stuart, if you ever come up with something truly original, he goes, forget all of this and just do that.
Neat. I like that.
So this,
I like that. Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's where you kind of come in, really, I guess.
Well, and see, and that's kind of where, and I encourage, so not to be a hypocrite, because I've told a lot of my young friends, they're like, Danny Joe, you really push education, music, and all that, but you don't do that. I'm like, no, because there's great benefit for it, and especially younger players that are trying to find a style. From the time I picked up the guitar, there's already music in my head, and it took me years, literally, to unlock and to be able to find it. And when I did, same thing, like I was saying, sounds with everything from, with the tremolo, make my guitar sound like a flute or like a slide. Some really unusual, and I one of the biggest compliments is not when people say, wow, you play really fast. I've had a lot of people that are accomplished musicians say to me, go, you know what, you're playing things that a guitar player normally wouldn't play. It doesn't make me think of guitar playing. And that is a huge compliment for me. I'm like, fine, finally, I have achieved that goal that has taken me a lifetime to do, to where, and people are like my phrasing. And that's the thing that warms my heart the most. I mean, because technique, they say, well, you'll eventually get too old. Another neat thing is I've had people
and
say,
so what if you do?
Yeah, but I've got so many other things. And it's that melody and things. And I keep telling them, I'm like, I'm 57, and I'm, you know, I did my Pachelbel Canon piece, and I had one guy say, Danny Joe, you're older than my dad. How are you able to play like that? Because I'm 27 and my hands are getting stiff. I'm like, I don't know. I'm fortunate. So,
and it's funny you should mention the phrasing thing, because Scott Henderson. Reference Scott Henderson again. He said, if you can phrase good, you can play good, right? So in other words, there's a thing in fusion you may or may not know. It's called sidestepping. And the thing is, one thing that does annoy me about theory, there's got to be a name for everything. Got to be.
Is that right?
Can't just do it. Oh, that's modal interchange. You know, again, good way of explaining things and this, that, and the other. But in phrasing, if you've got someone who goes all those chromatic things in between, you can't really explain that. There's no scale, but the guy knows how to phrase. Oh. There was a guy, I'll think of his name in a minute now, jazz kind of fusion guy. And I remember watching one of his videos, and he did something that I didn't know at the time, where he was playing these major triads, and he was just doing this phrasing and just playing them up the neck. And the guy doing the interview, you know, breaking this stuff down, was like, oh God, like, that sounded amazing. Like, what was you doing there? And he goes, oh, it's just a bunch of triads. I just add some phrasing and just move them up. He goes, well, where? He goes, well, doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it sort of bears out what you say, as much as it's, you know, you can know some things, but like the guy said, he goes, I don't know. It's just,
yeah, and it's finding, and I remember one of the coolest interviews I ever heard was with Billy Gibbons, another one of my Southern Rock, one of my heroes. Brilliant. And what he was saying is, he goes, when you're learning the guitar, he goes, you pick that thing up, and he goes, your vibrato will be your fingerprint. And he goes, you find your voice. He goes, you go with that, and you create, and you keep playing until you're finding a voice. And the guy, Johnny Winters, I mean, all these amazing, those cats inspired me. And none of them were schooled players. So it's kind of more the environment.
Yeah.
I loved, I make references to the dirty old school, Aerosmith, when those guys were all whacked out of their minds on substance. But man,
cheese balls.
Right, yeah, there it was. Yeah,
you know what that is? Cocaine and cheese.
There you go.
I stole that from Jack Black.
Yeah, I like it. But these guys that were just dirty, gritty rock and rollers, and it was such an inspiration to me. It was during that time when we were all just guitar players, and I miss that. And I'm trying to share with so many young players, and even older guys. They want to compartmentalize, and I go, guys, just find your voice and play.
Yeah.
And can we not? Let's not put a category. Can we not do that?
I mean,
let's play music.
The only thing I would say about the kind of schooled thing, everybody's schooled, right? Mm-hmm. Say, for example, your mum and your dad speak English to you as a kid. Mm-hmm. They're teaching you how to speak English, whether you like it or not. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be able to speak it if you didn't hear it somewhere. Right. And I think if you listen to Billy Gibbons or you listen to any of the great players, Steve Lukather, Eddie Van Halen, you're being schooled by those people. And there was a guy, do you know this guy, Joel Hoekstra?
Oh, love him. He's a great player. He's in Whitesnake now, right?
Yeah, I don't know if he was, and then I think he does the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and then maybe he's back, I don't know. But
great player.
He did a great lesson on in Guitar World on the video version of it. And it was something like 12 or 15 ways to play the A minor pentatonic scale. Now, of course, this could do the... But what he pointed out was, me and you probably maybe do this a little bit naturally, but he's like, right, you can slide to a note. You can vibrato a note. You can bend a note. You can do a little sweep to a note. You can hammer to a note. You can pull off from a note. And he went through all of these different things that sometimes you take for granted, and you think to yourself, that's really the stuff that makes you sound... And he could do incredible stuff. His tapping's like ridiculous and everything.
Yeah.
But my point being is like, that's nothing to do with A minor is the second chord, second mode of G or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm not even sure if you would put that under a theory category. Mm-hmm. But what just a great way for someone to say, well, if this is the only scale you ever play, and you get really good at applying these devices I'm showing you, you're going to sound fantastic. Because let's be honest, Billy Gibbons is the way, well, all great musicians know it's not what you do, it's the way you do it.
Sure. And that's the one thing, too, is I had another friend that is, he did some session work in the late 80s, early 90s. And I was really amazed. I was stymied by just the musical knowledge that he had. He was brought in for some session work. It paid about $1,200.
All right.
And they put the score in front of him. He didn't get to play right away. He had to follow.
Right.
He had to follow the whole thing. And he was telling me he had to wait, come through, go through the pages. And it went on and on and on. And he had this one section that he had to come in. And I said, unbelievable. Because he was incredible at sight reading and all of that and just knew it. And I'm like, it's a skill set I don't have. I don't want to put limitations, but I don't think it's ever something I could do because I don't know if I have the patience to sit and do it. But I have great admiration for that. But to sit... And it's a minute and a half, and he's counting measures, and he's doing all this, and then here comes his spot to play. And it was something fairly simple, but to have to sit and follow that entire thing, I said, so I have great admiration for the people that do it. That's why I always encourage the youngsters. Learn, get as much as you can.
I mean, I read. I'm not great at it, but I learned to read on drums first, and I would say bar counting is essential. Like I used to do pit work, shows on drums. And if you can't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. And also learning how long 8 bars feels like, or how long does 16 bars feel like. And I'm an ADA guy. I mean, I've got to be honest. It's like I told you earlier, I come downstairs and I don't remember what the fuck I came downstairs for. I'm just being honest. I'm thinking because I'm normally thinking about guitars or music or something.
Sure.
So I'll come down to get something and I'll be like, I don't even know what I came down here for. But I'm just saying, counting bars, anything timing or phrasing. I've mentioned this a few times on the podcast. Well, there's only 3 episodes, but I mention it all the time. If you haven't seen this, you probably have, but if you haven't, I highly advise you see it or anyone else's. Do you know Scott Henderson's melodic phrasing?
I know Scott Henderson, but I don't know that particular. that
Incredible. That changed my playing overnight. Absolutely overnight. But I want to just get onto this. So we were talking about the Atlantic Records thing. Now, that particular album ended up on YouTube. Tell us a little bit about that.
I put all that out there because I was more afraid, and I wanted this music to come out because it was very heartfelt, and I had a lot of fire and passion, and I get motivated. I do the regular routine. I'm working my regular job. I'm punching a clock, doing a 40-hour, doing my thing, and then I get to, when I come home, I get to immerse myself in music. And when that came along, that inspired me in such a way to be able to say, I might not have to do this. I might not have to punch a clock. I might be able to make an actual living as a proper musician. It's a goal of mine. It's a dream. That's everything. And when this was going on, it really taps my creative juices. Anytime something real spectacular happens, like I wrote a lot of really, really good music after that Guitar World magazine came. When Mike Varney listed me and wrote me up, every time I've had these pentacles, these little flashes that have brought me out, it opens Pandora's box. I am so incredibly creative, Stuart, and I'm really proud of, and it comes very quickly. It comes out. And I came up with a lot of I felt really powerful music, touching on a lot of different styles, and I was really proud of it. And I was afraid that if that was going to get shelved or anything was going to happen or I might have some sort of repercussions or something. But once again, Phil was very involved in other things he's doing. And if I haven't got to see him, if I saw him now, I'd give him a great big hug because he's a great guy. But I felt that I have to put this stuff out. And so what I did was I did my own finished mixes, and I didn't include anything that he did, so I wouldn't have anything like that. And I put it out all on YouTube and some really good stuff. And I just wanted people to hear it. And then on my Facebook, about once every other couple of weeks, I'd put out a little bit. I'd put out there. And it was really interesting enough. I sat and I said, well, if anything, this is going to be a record of what I've done, because most of these to this day, they might have 100 views. So it's gone unnoticed. Yeah,
I've got the same thing. Like, I've got lessons, on my YouTube channel. But so where can people find out about everything Danny Joe Carter, the DJC, the album?
A lot of it's going to be right off my YouTube, Danny Joe Carter, right off my YouTube, because I put all my music, and I've done demos on each guitar that I've made for myself. Right. I think to date, there could be around 80 DJC guitars that I've made that have been floating around out and whatever. Right. And 10 of them that I have now, I'm in the process of building one more. But nice. I've been offered a ton of money, but no, they're not for sale. I needed a nice collection of my own guitars. Right. So these I have, and I've really kind of pushed off a little bit, and I've had a lot of people going, why aren't you pushing your guitar line? And I think what happened, it was a few years back, I was being referred to as, oh, well, Danny Joe's this luthier. No, he doesn't play guitar. It's kind of a weird thing. I was being diminished as a player and pushed off. And
I was the other way around. I knew he was a player first, and then I found out about DJC.
And I'm grateful for that. But there were a lot of people that would kind of use that and say, well, no, Danny Joe, he doesn't really play guitar.
Yeah, but didn't Eddie Van Halen build guitars?
Yeah, see, but I don't have that name and that reputation. That came out later on. And it was to the point where... And I did an interview with a guy recently. We were doing a little thing. Nothing as professional as this. And it was really brought up. This is incredible. This is like Christmas Eve. This is cool. I'm so grateful to you for bringing me on.
I'm so grateful for you to come in. I had a blast.
Oh, this is awesome because we're talking about guitar. And like I said, I don't get many. There aren't many people that want to say, Danny Joe, tell me what you think or what's your opinion. But I'm playing a lot, and I'm wanting to be known as a player more so than, and it was an amazing experience getting to tech for Michelangelo Radio. Cherished the experience. But after that, I started having people, and there were a couple of known world-renowned cats that came to me. Oh, by the way, do you think you could repair this and this, and I might need a tech? I'm like, I didn't take that bait. I don't want to be known. It's not even so much about the money. I want to be known as a player more so than so many but that's what happened, and that's why I kind of almost diminished the...
I do want to interject a little bit there because a lot of people, some people I know, some people I don't. I'll give you a classic example. So Oasis, obviously.
Oh, I love that band.
Right, so Noel Gallagher was a roadie for Inspiral Carpets was one of the bands he did. I don't know how many bands he did, but what he did was, and this is for anybody who's watching, just be a little bit careful with this, because he was smart. Not only did he go out there and earn quite a bit of money that he could invest in himself, but he met a whole bunch of cats that could help him out.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
So, it never actually ended up happening for me, but I got a famous friend of mine. Mick Jagger said to me the other day, "Don't ever drop names, Stuart. It's not a cool thing to do." You know what I mean? Then Bruce Springsteen started talking in. I said, "Bruce, look, got it the first time." But my point being is, it's not necessarily, because not only do you make friends with people that want to help you, but you can also sometimes figure out who the guys are that can help you out, whether it's managers, whether it's each to their own. Sure. And I'm sorry, going back to my Mick Jagger story. So I knew, which never happened, by the way. But I had a friend of mine. I got a friend of mine, famous friend of mine, and I was like this close to calling him and saying, "Look, I'll come. Can you give me a job with the organisation?"
Sure.
Bang. I didn't end up doing it. But I thought about it for quite some time. I just wanted to make sure, because he's a really good guy I like. Right. And I sort of thought, I need to make sure that I can do it with a good heart, because I'd be really letting them down if I didn't. And in the end, it wasn't for me. But I got to be honest, if it had been 20 years before, I might have done it.
Interesting point.
Because then
the guy that came at me, I mean, he is world renowned, and I actually met him through Michael. And I won't mention his name only because but I don't want it to feel tacky or anything like that. But he is world renowned. This guy is a legend. I'll just say he's a drummer,
right?
And he's like, and what he said, he goes, you'll be a behind the scenes guy. He goes, I don't have my people anywhere near, you're away. I'll bring you things to work on, and then that's it. We won't have any contact. And I thought, I don't want to,
But bearing in mind he's a drummer, he probably would have forgot that the next day.
Perhaps. Yeah, perhaps. Yes. But that was, if anything, that was something that I was like, well, I better shy away from this, because I've struggled so much to have identity. It's like what was it? The Dr. Seuss, Horton Hears a Who, Yeah. So that literally, I feel like I'm that guy. I'm 57. My playing is, I'm so proud of where I am right now as a player. But like I said, there's a handful of people that know who I am, and that's why I was so excited last night. I slept very little because I was coming here to see you. I'm dead serious. This was something that was so cool and I was explaining to a friend of mine who you are and what you do, and it's like, well, your list of, and he goes, and he wants to visit with you, because he still doesn't understand. He's not a musician. He doesn't get what I do,
Well,
and
because to me, it's a little bit like the kind of Joe Rogan thing. Like, yes, he does have a lot of famous people on there, but a lot of times, the people, I've never heard of the people that are on there, quite frankly.
Right.
But as long as it's fun and I'm not comparing you to that, but I'm just saying, as long as it's fun and the conversation's interesting. And I think that I have the same thing where it's like, I'm just interested in people. There's always something I do when I have a conversation with another guitar player or musician where I learn something. Always.
Sure.
Or at the very least, I'm interested in what they're saying. But I always learn something. So for me, it's not about, and I think we live in this kind of weird world now where I'm not sure how interested in famous people are.
Man,
because they're always like, careful what they say because of the whole woke thing and the whole left with it. So they're like, yes. Okay, so what do you think about this? No. And people like us, we just say what we say. And I think the world is hungry for a little bit of truth.
Sure.
Just say something. Don't say everything you've said in the last guys. Left, good, right, bad.
Yeah.
At least I think that's what it says here.
You're following a script.
Don't you live in the Hollywood Hills and you've got a Maserati? Yeah, but, and I don't pay any tax, but still, the left are good. And that's what it says here. I'm reading it, right, aren't I? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
That's a good script.
So it's a good script.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, mate, listen, it's been absolutely brilliant. If there's anything else you'd like to add about contacts or anything like that, please.
You can hit me up on Facebook.
Facebook.
I am the easiest guy in the world. If we're going to talk guitars, I'm all about it.
Is it Danny Joe Carter / something or whatever, or is it?
I gotta check and see. I'm not even sure myself. So I'm on Facebook. It's just
Right.
DannyJoe.Carter, I think is what it is. But
Danny
there's a
Joe.
picture of me playing one of my guitars. That's how you'll know it's me. Because I don't
Right.
think there's any other Danny Joe other than Danny Joe Brown from that was from Molly Hatchet, the
Yeah.
singer.
Okay.
But I think I'm about it. And then on my YouTube, that's where all my music. And if people want to see, let's see something really fast. So they're only about 30 to 40 seconds. I keep it so it's not boring. Most people go, I had to go walk back and watch it 20 times. I like that. So I
Yeah.
keep it short and sweet. But there are songs. So you can see me playing noodling. Oh, here's my hummingbird picking. Here's this. Here's some Delta slide. But mixed in all that, songs that I put out last year that I'm really, really proud of.
Excellent,
Really
mate.
good music.
So, guys, check Danny out. Check him out on Facebook. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. Been an absolute pleasure to have you, mate. Got to say, really, really fun, interesting conversation. We'll do the fist bump because I don't want to. I don't want to ruin the. I don't want to kill the hummingbird.
You got it, man.
That would be.
Love you, Stuart. Thank you so much for having me on.
Don't kill the
This is
hummingbird.
awesome.
That would be
I
a great
won't.
title for
yes, I
someone
like that.
else.
Yeah.
And we'll talk soon.
You got it.
Thanks, guys.
All
Thanks
right.
for tuning in. I'll just switch back to me for a second for some reason. I don't know why. Oh. There we go. Right, thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you very soon. That's it. We did 2 hours, man.